Hello, good morning, happy Tuesday. How you all doing today? We have a couple things going on. First of all, it's going to be a longer stream today. We get to go up right until, well, probably we'll stop working on this around 11:30, and I'll switch over to the second part of the stream, which is going to be a chat with a recruiter. So that's going to come up at the chat starts at 12 o'clock and goes for about an hour. It's Will Wegert, who is a recruiter here in Denver, Colorado, and it should be fun. I haven't done this before on stream, so we're gonna. He said that he might be able to come up a little bit early, like at 11:30 or so, and sort of like we can start trying to connect because we haven't done any tests. So that's gonna be fun. I have no idea how that's gonna work. We're gonna have to play around with that and see it. That being said, let's jump into the other project though that we've been working on, which is our a hashing algorithm in AI. So yesterday we were able to create a custom hashing algorithm in Java. I got a response back from the my contact, the dev relations person at FusionAuth, and he said, let me see if I can pull that up. He said that they support everything from Java 8 to Java 23. Chantilly, hello. How are you doing today? And that they're leaving the Java 8 requirement on there as basically a minimum requirement. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I think I basically mentioned that I would prefer it to just say, hey, I support from 8 to 23. I think that would be like the better way because 8 is pretty old at this point in time. So let me see if there's anything else from... No, I'm not seeing anything else from him right now that came in overnight. I did not check my email this morning. So, okay. So that being said, if we take a look at, let's see, what do I want to put in here? I want, right, it's the Java thing. It's the my example FusionAuth. No, it's this one. So what we need to do is make a API call out. Oh, and I also need to activate Olama like this. And I need to remind myself how to access Olama from, which is running outside of Docker, inside of Docker. So basically sending a request, an HTTP request, into something else, which I believe we can do. Well, it's not I believe I can do. I know we can do it. I just need to remember how to do it. And let's see. Docker desktop. Can I see the network stuff in here? I'm not, I see like where it's running, but I'm not necessarily seeing. Yeah, so there is something that I can do. There's like a host at docker.com or something like that that allows me to access the host ports from within Docker. It's a little bit more of an advanced thing, so it's not in the course. And I constantly forget what it is because I so rarely use it. I wonder if I have... I just up arrow enough, maybe I can find it. Oh, but this is going into a long, pretty far back now. Yeah, I don't think it's okay. I'm going back to like creating of the last two courses. So I don't think it's any of those. Oh, do I have maybe in use settings? Let's see, where is it? Oh, I actually do have that here. Okay, cool. So I have I've been playing around with oh, what is it called? For Olama Open Web UI, and that has a setting in it that lets me see what I'm going for. Perfect. Okay, so if I copy you, I want to open up Docker Compose, and we want to add in a network volume. Ooh, where do I add this in here? Is it a networks thing that I add in? Ooh, I need to remember how this works. Scott, hello. How are you doing today? Wait a minute, that doesn't look like Rust. Yeah, exactly. We're well, yeah, we're not using Rust today. It's Java. Java's similar to Rust, right? It's close. Okay, so this would be a FusionAuth thing. And I have a bunch of environment variables. Okay, so I believe that the documentation for Open Web UI has how to do this. Web UI. If you haven't seen Open Web UI, it's basically attempting to be sort of like an open source user interface similar to ChatGPT, but you can host it locally. And it's all like it can be completely used offline if you're not connecting to a internet-based LLM, which is nice. You're working on the struct section and wrestling's nice. How are you enjoying it so far? Oh, right. So they have this add host, and that's where you add this thing in here. And it's not necessarily the best idea to throw in, but I believe yeah, extra hosts is what this one's called. And extra hosts, I think, is just going to be an array. And I want you to be like that. Okay, pretty good. It makes you go back and read your Rust book and helps develop your understanding. Oh, nice. Yeah, anytime that we can like do repetition like that, so it solidifies the understanding so well. So that's awesome. Okay, so if I do this, we're gonna have to restart all of you. Let's go ahead and quit you. We'll do a Docker Compose down. And we'll bring it back up again. And I believe down here, if I look at, we do a curl. Yeah, so here we have a curl where, API generate. This is when we were trying to use not the, it was the ChatGPT compatible API, which I don't think is correct. Because I think this caused weirdness. The other one that we have is Insomnia. I believe I have a few of these. So API generate, I think that was weird. That gives me this. That actually looks right, doesn't it? Oh, it was the V1 chat completions. So this V1 chat completions gives me something that's not correct. And show isn't what I want. Okay, so it's this one. API generate. That is, okay, so this is exactly what we want. And we can see here's our response. This would be the hash. So if I want to make this call from inside the container, we can do, let's see, Docker compose, go into FusionAuth, and do we have curl? We do have curl. Okay. So I want to curl to p : // and now this is going to be probably don't need the both HTTPs. Host.docker.internal and then the port number. This is the default port that Olama is running on. API generate. And then we have data. And so we have our model, which is the hasher model. The prompt, which is password. And stream is false. And so if we send you, that should now respond with exactly the same thing. So I'm able to now access this from inside the container. So, okay, that part is going to work for us. So then the next thing would be we need to get Java to send the request. Or rather, maybe be more precise with our language, we need to write an HTTP request using Java and whatever they have in their standard library, which I am not aware of. So let's go find how to do that. So let's do Java. I guess technically it's Java 17 send HTTP request. Let's just see what this search gets us. Okay, HTTP client. I saw an HTTP request down there too, so that might work. This is from Java Net HTTP, that's the module. An HTTP client can be used to send requests and retrieve their responses. An HTTP client is created through a builder. The new builder method returns a builder that creates instances of the default HTTP client implementation. The builder can be used to configure per client state. So if I don't really care about being super efficient, they have futures. So we can do it in either way. I am okay with blocking for right now. And I actually don't know if the hashing method is meant to be blocking on FusionAuth side, and if they're going to spawn up multiple processes or threads to sort of run that into. So if they're essentially already asynchronous there, being synchronous here is fine. Okay, and here's our synchronous example. So we need to have HTTP client. So yeah, so we use your builder. Give it what the version is. That's going to be fine. Whether or not we follow redirects. How much we want to time, like if we want to time out for this, which is perfect. Do I actually need most of these? I bet I don't. I bet I don't need like a proxy. And I don't need authentication. And then I send. I send with a request, which they don't show me how to make that. That's cool. All right, well, one thing at a time, right? The first thing that we want to do is we want to make JavaNet HTTP. Okay, so you import java.net.http. That should make you happy. Now, the only thing that I'm going to make a change to is this encrypt function, because I don't think I actually care at all about any of this. Because the only thing we care about is this return right here. And so everything else is completely ignored. I don't need to do this Mac init. I don't need to do that entire byte thing. We're just going to return you. If there is a problem, though, we will have an exception of some kind, and we'll have to deal with that. But okay, we'll come back to that. So, HTTP client, to build a client. I'm going to put this over on the left so I can see it a little bit easier. We'll just throw everything into the try because, is that right? No, because it's strongly typed. This doesn't say if it can fail or not. So I guess we'll not put this into, like, I don't know what the error type would be. And I don't have any help for myself right now in, let's see. I don't think I have any help. What's the command? Yeah, health Java. JDTLS. I'm looking to see if Homebrew has a JDTLS that I can install. No, it does not. So I would need to figure out. Wait, no, it does have it. Okay, let me install that really quickly. Oh, I need to be the other user. Okay, so if I do a brew do brew update, and then a brew install jdtls, and then that might actually give me a language support for Java. Oh, which of course is installing OpenJDK. So I'm ending up with Java anyways on a system, which I guess makes sense if I want the debugger. It's probably not really a debugger that I'm getting, but some kind of like helper, linter. Hey, it's loading something. Ooh, you're unhappy. Only a type can be imported. Java that resolves to a package. Oh, so... Oh, so I want this. I want the HTTP client, right? Yeah, I want HTTP client, like that. Why are you all yelling at me? None of these are used. Okay. Great. You're not used either. All right. Diablo, hello. How are you doing today? Cato, no Cato right now. Ad starts in around 5 minutes, so maybe during the ad break, I will go grab Cato. We'll bring Zilly back and let him. You can see him, and we'll see how long he stays and hangs out. All right, so we're gonna do HTTP client. Client is going to be equal to an HTTP client new builder. Now version. If this method is not invoked prior to building, then newly built clients will prefer HTTP 2. What do I care about? Does it matter? I don't know if that matters. I don't need an authenticator. Sets the connect timeout duration for this client in the case where a new connection needs to be established. If the connection cannot be established, okay, so I bet that I do want some kind of duration for this. Let's time of seconds. Let's do 30. Let's do let's give it a because like it might actually take longer if the model's not preloaded. So let's do something insane and just say, hey, you got 500 seconds. I'm guessing I don't really care about anything else. So let's see, version, follow redirects, connect timeout. Do we add that one in? Oh, follow redirects. That was one of these. Specifies whether requests will automatically follow redirects issued by the server if this method is not invoked, and we use a default redirection. And the one here says redirect normal, which I'm guessing is the same as the default. So I probably don't need to worry about that. Proxy selector of new inet socket. I don't think I need a proxy, and I don't need an authenticator, so I think at that point I can just build. Okay. And now we have this lovely type. Okay, so now that we have a client, I can now send a request. So if I were to do HTTP response, and we're going to send what? Oh. What do you need to be? Why are you not helping me? HTTP request. Okay, so I probably want to create that first. I could do a builder. Oh, so there's new builder, and oh, right, I forget. Java does have method overloading. Is that what it's called? Method overloading, method overriding, something like that, where basically you can have multiple constructors for the same class, but then if it follows a different signature, it just chooses which of those you want. I've heard it's like a common request for Rust to support. I go back and forth on this because it can get a little bit confusing about which one like is going to be used, especially when it's the different name. But also, like, I can totally see that sometimes it's nice to have. So yeah, I'm not really beholden to either of those. Now, probably this one. So you want the URI, and we have the URI that we want here. So that's going to be HTTP, and actually we know what to use. Because it's this thing. Ooh, ad break just started. I will be right back with Zilby. All right, I'm back. I think the ads are done, right? Yeah, the ads are done, and we have Zilby. You want to purr into the mic? No? Okay. I know he's purring very. Well, he's not purring right now at all, but he was purring softly. Vampire, hello. How are you doing today? All hail the single orange brain cell. Yeah. It is funny when he's sort of looking around and then he it reminds me of like, when we're kids and we just suddenly realize like was the ceiling always textured in that way? There's always that many like whatever dots or like marks on the walls. I've never noticed that until now. Sort of like what I feel goes through his mind. But I guess we're just gonna stay here until he's done. And then I'll just slow blink at him. Do you want to say anything, Zoe? I guess now is also a great time. If any of you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll be happy to answer any any of them, regardless if it's about the project we're working on right now, LLMs. We also have the recruiter, Will Wegert, who's coming in a little bit later, in about 2 hours. So, uh, Omnifides, hello. How are you doing today? How much do I pay the cat? Well, we have food that's brought in, for him. We go and buy food for him, which reminds me, I am running out. I need to go buy new food for him fairly shortly. So that's a form of payment, right? And then we have toys. He has plenty of toys that we. Oh, are you done? Okay, he's done. Come over here. All right. Well, it goes from cat is very happy to be lying down to cat is very unhappy to be lying down instantly, which as cats do. What does the recruiter recruit for? Software development, programming. And he did ask about Rust stuff in the past for me, but that is most like it wasn't. It was a company who was looking for a Rust dev who was super into like some of the deeper level type stuff. So it wasn't like a junior or mid level. I think it was like a very senior Rust job. I have no idea what the status of that one is. I don't know if he took it because there are not that many Rust like developers who are that level of seniority anymore available that you can just hire anymore. You suppose front end if Rust? I don't know. It might have been sort of like a library backend type building too. I would imagine that most Rust jobs would be sort of like in that area, sort of like more the systems level, or possibly AI. But I don't really know much about that. But yeah, those are all good questions that would be able to do that. Wasn't Rust the new C++? I mean, yeah, I guess. The Rust can call C++ pretty easily from within inside it, and you can call Rust from inside of C++. So they kind of can work next to each other. But there are plenty of people who are replacing C++ with Rust. And, it's a thing. But is it, I don't know if I would call it like the new C++. I would call it the new systems language. All right. Back to making security researchers cry. So if we hit here and then we want to go, okay, so that hits you. And then we just want to hit API generate. That's our URL. Body publisher returns an optional containing the body publisher set on this. Is that for setting the body? The publisher part is I'm a little bit confused about. Oh, then there's those snippets. So it probably is body publisher. You're not going to give me any help here, though. Looks like a... oh, ToggleBit, hello. How are you doing today? How was stream this morning? Or I guess afternoon for you? You can't imagine Rust being used for AI ML, but you're not an expert. The big news of Rust is attempting to move most of Linux to it. Yeah, that is pretty big news to it. I could imagine though that it can be used for, you know, AI ML. Eventually, there's going to be some kind of memory security stuff that people are going to be worried about it, especially if you're throwing these things in like front end areas. But that might be later type thing. I don't think most people are even like considering that right now. Mostly security researchers will make you cry. Those guys get extremely creative with generating attack vectors. It's not even funny, but it's good to make them salty. Yes, well, when they see what I'm doing, that's what makes them cry, right? When they see that I'm using AI to create hashes. Looks like a factory for the body publisher class. Okay. Oh, so I run that to create a body publisher, but what I'm unhappy about is the fact that this doesn't really help me out here. So I probably want to build... Wait, is there no build? Oh. New builder with no build on it. That's interesting. Because I did this wrong. Because you're not a string. Right. Okay. So I didn't hand it the right thing. I need to hand it an actual string. We need to figure that out. But okay. ToggleBit stream was different. How am I doing? I'm doing pretty good. We are working on some Java right now without actually properly sort of getting into like reminding myself how Java actually works, which is great. We only need to write like one file essentially, and I'm not even playing with we're staying within one method in one file, in one class, and just sort of going in there. It's going to be fine. And we already verified that it integrated with FusionAuth just fine as it is. So we can just update this to make an HTTP call, because that's what every security researcher wants to see, is that your hashing algorithm makes an HTTP call as part of the hash. That's a good idea, right? There'll be an API to any AI ML. The AI ML will be done in PyTorch or TensorFlow if Google. Well, remember that at some point of time, you can't have an API call to something. Something needs to be developed. And there's always going to be some like desire to put multiple types of AI ML algorithms out there, not just the ones that are built in C++. You might want to have ones that are built in Rust too. And that's, that's a thing. Yeah, this Rust looks a bit too exciting. Oh, come on. This looks exactly like Rust. I don't know what you're talking about. If you're using PyTorch, you just use a hash. It is built into the language. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're doing. Oh, yeah. So I'm making an HTTP call to Olama. So I have Olama running up here. And if we take a look at my curl, I'm basically saying, hey, AI, generate for me a hash using my model hasher. So I created a model and I hand it the prompt, which is going to be the password. And then it responds back with the response, which is the hash, which is perfect, right? Like, what could possibly go wrong with this? You finally entered the AI domain at work. You can't disclose how, why, but it's going to be interesting. Awesome. Well, if nothing else, hopefully it should be a lot of fun. Java, you're one of the 3 people who wrote the Strata JVM for Sun Microsystems. We wrote it in Java in 13 months. Oh, nice. That's awesome. And I'm glad you're here. I am obviously not doing very much with Java here. So I am probably not properly using Java at all. So sorry about that. Hopefully this doesn't cause too much pain. Okay, so, and I also assume that if, like, I guess maybe no assumption, but have you stayed in Java since then? Because it's been just a few years since Sun and Java were a thing. But I actually knew people who worked at Sun. Sun was well, I mean, from what I've heard from them, I never worked there myself. I heard that Sun was great to work at. Sun and Java go hand in hand, like IBM and Java. Well, wait. That just broke my brain. It's like, wait, I'm now thinking, like, what did IBM invent? What did they invent? A language? How about we say, like, IBM and Lotus? But they didn't invent Lotus either. They just bought Lotus so that it wouldn't die? You were a researcher at the University of Wisconsin. You never worked at Sun directly. Okay, awesome. Red Hat and Java, Google and Java, yeah. No, Google and Kotlin. Google and Java can't be a thing anymore. IBM invented virtual machines. Sun invented Java. Okay, got it. Excellent. Now, there was a question of why Java? Why not Python or literally anything else? Because that, could be a thing, right? The reason is, let's bring up the documentation here. The reason is because FusionAuth here has, they have the ability for me to, I think it's extend. No, it's not extend. It's the plugin system. So I can write plugins with Java only. They only support Java. Yeah, so writing plugin. Install Java 8. Now, it's not Java 8. You don't have to use Java 8. Java 8 is the minimum required version, but they support all the way up to Java 23. But yeah, it has to be Java for this. IBM invented Fortran. I didn't know that. I installed Fortran a lot, but when I was a sysadmin, we were installing the Intel Fortran compilers, and those were expensive. That was back when you paid for compilers. AT&T Labs used to invent a lot of things. Wasn't it Bell Labs at the time? Yeah, OmniFocus. I was just asking that exact same thing. I think it was Bell Labs, and then didn't Bell get bought by AT&T? Or like they changed name or split off or whatever. It was something like that. Yeah. But yeah, Bell Labs was like so many. Unix came from Bell Labs. Okay. Either way, I am trying to send I'm trying to send this HTTP request to Olama. So I have a client. So we have an HTTP client, and now I want to create the request itself because I need to hand the request to the send method from the client. Now, I am trying new builder and I pass it in you, but you're yelling at me because this is not a string, so therefore it doesn't know the rest of this. Now, is that because string is its own thing? Do I do string? Do I do string? New string data. So can I just do new string like that? Will that work? The method new builder URI in the type HTTP request. Okay, so no. Oh, but I get. Oh, because it's URI. Okay, so it's wrong type. Let me copy you. Let me copy you. And so I need URI. Create. Now, I don't think I can just do that, right? I think I have to give it a new string. Okay. Like that. Yeah. Now I can do a build there. Okay, so that makes you happy. Right, because I don't have a try. So let's go ahead and just ignore this for right now. And I'll just do a return like that for the second. Just to remind myself that I eventually need to return something. Okay, so now we have a request. It's going to send a message to here. It needs to be a post. Oh, and that's going to be the body publisher. So I need a oh, it's just a normal class. Okay, so new body publisher. What? You're not going to tell me how you work? That doesn't seem to be happy either. Hold on. Fine. Oh, I don't actually want to do you yet. How did I go up there and do a new request at the same time? That seems wrong. I'm pressing all the wrong buttons. Okay, so you're not. This is my help window when I tell it, hey, tell me what the HTTP request is. How about you? Okay, so you'll tell me your HTTP request, and so if I did body publisher, it's an interface that should be the type, converts high-level Java objects into a flow of byte buffers suitable for sending as a request body. Oh, wait, does this mean I need a new class? I probably need a class for this, don't I? LSP, Language Server Protocol, is one of the coolest inventions. Microsoft actually did something good. Yeah, LSPs are pretty freaking cool. Okay, so there's also body publishers. Implementations of body publisher that implement various useful publishers, such as publishing a request body from a string. Okay, body publishers. String body returns a request body publisher whose body is the given string converted using the UTF-8 character set. Okay, and this gives me a body publisher. So if I do body publisher, body is going to be equal to this of string. Then I want a new string, and you're going to be this entire, whoa. Let me just grab it from you. You're going to be on one line. Okay, fine. I'll grab it from you because that's easier. Nope, I just want the object. I'm missing a closing curly bracket. That's okay. And we now need to do that. Okay, and this prompt, I want to close you off. We're going to do a plus the password plus how did I go up there? Nope, stop. Do what I want you to do, not what I'm telling you to do. Okay, no, don't cancel that one. Okay, so then you should be happy now. So that gives me, okay, so body publishers of string now creates this object. We throw in the password into the prompt and we get the body out. And so now we can do post body. Okay. And is there anything else we care about in this? Because if I just do the curl, so that's the curl to URL, body with that, I wonder if post is also going to set the right headers. Sets the request method of this builder to post and set its request body publisher to the given value. Oh, but it doesn't say that it's going to set the headers to like request JSON. So I probably need to do header content type application JSON. Are you strings? I bet these are strings, aren't they? Let's see. What did I miss? I'm on MacBook Pro. You have an M1 2021, which is one of yours. That sounds about right. I have an M1 either Pro or Max. I can't remember which one it is. With 64 gigabytes of memory. So I think this is a new string that I throw in content type, new string, application JSON. And so that should be happy now. So theoretically, I get this back into... Okay, so now I can send the request, right? So HTTP response will be our client. We're going to send the request, which is the HTTP request there, and then I also have to send a response body handler. Is that a method? That's a method, isn't it? Okay, so there's our request, and then method. I'm not happy that I don't really get like help with this. Like I wish that I would pop up the help like I get with the other languages. And I'm clearly getting some kind of help from the LSP, just not as much awesomeness as I would prefer. Exact same machine, it reads writes over 1 gigabit per second on the flash drive. Awesome. You can also run many smaller. Yeah, I played around with Ollama and some of the models, and I've run the largest model that I've run at all is a 123B model. It's I had to quant the heck out of it down in order to like actually run it at all, but it ran. It's slow. It's definitely slow, but it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, do my query, and then I just go off and like start making dinner or something, and then come back and it works. You can suggest using NeoVim. Yeah, we've tried NeoVim before and we enjoyed it, but I'm using Helix now, and it's been fine for everything else, and I don't plan on using Java for a lot, so I'm probably not going to set up NeoVim for Java just for this. But if we do like a lot of other Java type stuff, maybe we would look into it. I don't know if we will though. Yeah, 123 is absolutely huge. I did download a bigger one, but that just crashed and didn't work. I ran out of memory. Basically, the idea of an LLM is that you can run as much memory as you can hold. And so right now I can use an FP16 like Llama 3.1 8B just fine. And actually, like, I'm just doing programming like this, and it's really fast and everything works the way you expect it to. And I like the higher up you go, the more quants you need to do, which quants are reducing the number of weights essentially. There's some more stuff that's like reorganizing them and doing some other stuff. It's basically lobotomy. It's making a smarter, better model dumber, but the dumber, better model is usually smarter than the super smart, dumb model. It's not the best way of saying it. I hope that makes sense in any kind of way. But yeah. Oh, and ads, yes. Okay, I wanted to move both of you. But you didn't move both of you. Oh, I see. There's a minimum that my YouTube chat can be open at all. You look at Helix, always willing to look at a new editor. Yeah, I would look up quants. So here, let's take a break from Java because that's fun. If you go to ollama.com, for example, this is probably the best place that I found to look at the quants, because they'll show you the sizes of the quants and you can sort of like get a general idea of this. So if we look at, let's take a look at Llama 3.1. It has 94 tags, and we can see that it has many different sizes that are represented right here. And if we look at something like the 70B, this is a perfect example. So the 70B FP16, the FP floating point 16, this is unlobotomized in any way whatsoever. So it's fully capable. It's as good as the 70B is ever going to possibly get. And it is 141 gigabytes. That means that you need to have 141 gigabytes of memory for it to work, because it needs to load all of it at the same time. So on my computer here, it would not work if you had an astronomically large GPU or just amount of memory. It would work on your system. So enter in these queues. We have Q to K, Q4. These are in order from smaller to larger here. So the 2K is like 2-bit size, I believe. It's like 2 bits. And I don't remember / know how it organizes the weights. And also the K is something too, because you can have K. The S is like small, medium, large, or you can have just like 4.0 or 5.0, 5.1. There's a whole bunch of these different things, but the important thing to look at is the size of the memory here. So for example, the 70B, if you have 64 gigabytes of memory, the highest you can go is the 6K, the Q6K, but that's still going to be 58 gigabytes of memory. So if you have other things taking up memory, the 6K may kind of sort of work, but probably not. Also remember that the number of context, so the number of tokens you want it to remember, takes up memory too. So if you want it to have several thousand tokens in memory, you have to keep that in mind. So probably the best ones to do would be the 5s. So either the 5.1 or the 5KM if you have 64 gigabytes of memory. That's what I would probably recommend. It's still going to be slow, but at least it's going to be like usable and not like completely make you throw your computer out. After that, if you want it to be a little bit faster, you can see that between a 4.0 and a 5.0 is 9 gigabytes in size. That's a pretty good, you get a little bit less intelligent, but a lot less memory, which is good. You have a 7900 XTX with 24 gig. Oh, right. You were mentioning that yesterday. If you want GPU only, going to be smaller. If I remember correctly, which I may not be, I believe that Ollama lets you run across CPU and GPU at the same time. But being on my Mac, I've never tried that because I only have one type of memory here and it just runs on that. And for me, it's perfectly fine. Like I'm using 8B instruct FP16, which is 16 gigabytes of memory, and I don't notice it at all. Now, if I'm playing a game at the same time, I would probably want to use a quantized version. And even if you use the Q8, which only drops it down to like half a gigabyte down. So that might not be worth it for this one. But for a 70B, 70B instruct Q8, it takes it from like 140 something gigabytes to 75 gigabytes. Pretty huge savings there. Yeah, Llama is old technology. If you get into this big time, consider switching to a newer open model. Oh, you're talking about instead of Llama. Oh yeah, I've been playing around with all sorts of different models. For right now, I'm using Llama because I have a lot more trust in Llama's sensoring that they put onto the Q8 than pretty much most of the other models out there. And anytime I'm going to do something live on stream, I want to make sure that it's censored properly. The fun fact, the 70B instruct models don't seem to be very censored. You can ask them to do whatever they want, and they will do it. So it's something to play around with. Okay. Enough fun stuff. Let's go back to Java. Send. You want your model to swear like a sailor and sounds like an absolute old uncle. I believe you can do that fairly easily with the 7dB. I would not be surprised if somebody has already done that and it's on Hugging Face. Expression, okay, yes, I know that you expect an expression. So if I just do that, are you going to, I wonder, you won't, okay, sent. Body handler. So I need to, will you tell me what the body handler is? Response body handler, the response body handler. Thank you for that. I figured that out from that. Okay, so if I create a, hold on. What type are you again? Just body handler. Got it. So if I do, oh, such as handling the response body as a string or streaming the response body to a file. A handler for response body is the class body handlers provides implement. The body handler, right, because this is an interface, this is a class. So if I do that, you have some constructors or builders or something for us. Returns a body handler, returns a body subscriber obtained. Ooh. What do I want from here? Finding out what the body handler is a good job for Olama. You think? I've never had much good luck for any of the LMs telling me like programming type stuff. And generally what I found is that the LMs are great if you know what the answer is supposed to be already. But if you don't know, super easy to be just thrown off the rails. Okay, so of string doesn't tell me much. The body is decoded using a character set specified. Okay, so that just takes the entire body and puts it into a string, right? That's what I think I'm getting. Returns a response body handler returns the given replacement value after discarding the response body. Now, if I could just reach in and say, give me the response key from the JSON object coming back, but I don't think that's right. I'm guessing we need to do a class for this because it's a JSON value coming back. Perplexity gave you a good summary of how a body handler works with full overview of what's going on. Sure, we can try it. Let's do this. AI. We have. I currently just have this one, so let's just use you. And on top of that, I believe we can use... Oh, I actually have ChatGPT set up on here, don't I? So I could use that too if I really want to. But mama, use you. Right? It's not use, it's run. Let's see what the local one does. So if I try to say, what is a body? So what is a body handler in Java, and how do I use it? See what it says. Okay, so it's spitting out a bunch of code here. It's using a file, it looks like. Cool comparison with the llama. Perplexity is much better. I mean, it should be, right? Because this is an 8B. Now, if I installed this is also not a coding focused. Like, okay, if we have some time. There are a bunch of models that are focused on code that we can use. And I'm not necessarily sure which ones are the best. If I look at code, there's DeepSeek Coder, Code Gamma. I'm not sure. Code Llama, I think, is pretty good. I've heard like a bunch of different ones. I don't know which ones is really good. Quen 2.5 just came out, and people have said that it's pretty good. I'm gonna bring up. Oh, there's also Find. You can also use Find. It hasn't been updated in 9 months. Although that shouldn't matter, right? Please try Perplexity. You'll learn what you need to do with this. All right, let me go over to Perplexity. I really like the idea of trying to figure out how to do this locally. Okay, so don't need to create an account. That's nice. Let's close you all up. All right. I want Java. I guess yeah, you want to use more human English for this type of thing. So it'd be how to implement Java. What is it called again? Body handler. Body handler for an HTTP client. Sure, request. Stop trying to suggest things. Looks very similar to what Find interface is. It's like instead of the sources on the side, it's on the top. To implement a body handler for an HTTP request in Java, you have several options depending upon how you want to handle the response body. Here are some common ways to implement a body handler using predefined body handlers. So we saw the for string in the documentation. So that doesn't really tell me what, like any more information of like, what does that mean though? For file responses, okay. Create a custom body by implementing the interface. Oh, don't ask how to do it. Ask what it is. You learn about it. Okay, let's try that. What is the body handler in Java. It wanted to say JavaScript really badly. The body handler is a key component in Java's HTTP client API for processing HTTP response bodies. Here's an overview of the body handler. Body handler is responsible for determining how to handle the response body. Okay. So timing, conversion, and flexibility. And so this is the one we care about, is the conversion. But still not really helpful. This is nowhere as good as what you're looking at. Did I just prompt it incorrectly? Discarding a body input stream, file writing. I don't know what any of this means. Like, is this going to write it to the file? It doesn't explain what it is. It's only good for people who know nothing. I would argue the opposite, right? Like, AI is really good if you know it already. Because if it hallucinates, how do you know that it's hallucinating unless you know it? Otherwise, you just have to sort of like assume that it's telling the full truth when it may not be. So, I mean, what you could do is like ask a follow-up and say, I want to pull in, I want to extract the, I want to convert. I want to extract. I'm trying to think like what words and terms it's like training data would have the most, like from blog posts and from like sample code and other things. I'm not really sure. I'm gonna extract a key from the JSON response to use in my code. Let's see if it can use the context to figure that out. Splunk. Where did it get Splunk from? This is a follow-up, right? So it should use the previous as context? So what is the least cursed programmer model? I don't know. I don't know what the least cursed one is. I haven't played around with too many programming ones because I'm more interested in models that would just sort of like be chatting with you about code as opposed to like actually trying to code for you. Okay, the first one pointed to an overview on OpenJDK. Let's go take a look at it. The following are a number of examples and recipes that can be followed to perform common tasks using the JDK HTTP client. See here for an introduction to the JDK HTTP client. Okay, so I want to do a post. Body handler discard. Okay. In many cases, the response body will be in some higher level format. The convenience response body handlers can be used along with a third-party library to convert the response body into that format. The following example demonstrates how to use the Jackson library in combination with body handler as string to convert a JSON response into a map of string key value pairs. So you understand the concept of rubber duck, right? Why aren't people using LLMs for that instead? I think that they can, but I think that a lot of people don't necessarily try to because it's okay. So there's this problem that some people have when they're trying to communicate with each other. And the reason why rubber duck works really well is because they don't talk back, right? You talk to the rubber duck and the rubber duck just sits there and listens and doesn't try itself to solve your problem. But all the LLMs all attempt to solve problems. They don't care about how you're feeling or just letting you like work through a thing yourself. They want to solve things. They want to make you happy by solving. And that's a problem with a rubber ducky. The following example demonstrates how to use, okay, so the Jackson library. So to convert a JSON response into a map of string key value pairs. So will I be able to use Jackson library? I don't know. So do I have to use a third party thing for this? Because that's going to suck. Yeah, don't worry about that, Omnifidus. Yeah, and generative AI and then other AI too that's not generative is also it's kind of be funny that a lot of the non-generative AI is being overlooked right now because that is like sometimes even more powerful than LLMs at the moment. Okay, so we create a new builder. You do your header. You build. We create the new client. Send. Oh, they're doing async stuff. So using Jackson. Now, we don't have access to Jackson in here, right? I have Javax, but no Jackson. If I just try to import it, will Maven auto grab the stuff, or is there like a Maven? I don't see like a Maven tool to grabbing things. So if I just try to import it, will it just work? Predictive AI hallucinates. Yes, it does. Definitely hallucinates. A lot. In some ways, like talking to some data science people, in some ways we can almost consider that everything is a hallucination. It's kind of just how it works, right? Because it uses the previous tokens in the context to predict what the most likely next word or series of tokens, depending upon how many tokens we're letting it predict at once, should be. But you don't want to predict too many at a time because that reduces its creativity. Okay, so how would I grab Jackson? Java Jackson. Did your first MS degree in machine learning in 1994. Nice. Yeah, I never got an official degree on something like that. All right. So how do we pull you in? And that's possibly something. So usually what I use for this type of stuff, if I want to use AI, instead of like Perplexity, I often was using Find. To Find Pro. Sure, whatever. The Find model. What is that? I can use 7dB. Let's see. I want to add Jackson library to my Java 17 project. I have Maven. Remember the old Eliza chatbots? Like the one that pretend to be a psychoanalyst? Maybe we need a rubber duck one. I mean, a rubber duck can be that for you, right? Like we don't have to create LLMs. It would be hilarious though to create like a rubber duck IoT tool, put an entire LLM in it, but then it can't actually respond. All it can do is just decide if it's going to light up or not or something. It's not allowed to respond. So you're using all this technology, but it's actually of completely no use whatsoever. Like I'm really like, I love that kind of stuff. Oh, a POM XML file. So let's see if we have a POM XML file. We do. Don't update Discord. Okay, so my guess is that in here somewhere, I tell it dependencies. Yeah, okay, so I can just follow. So there's no Jackson. So I'm going to just go to the end of the dependency list, copy you, and we're going to go. So you want add the following dependency. So version numbers, I'm very hesitant about using. The rest, it might be correct or not. Who knows? We can just copy this in here, and if we need to keep in mind that there's a high chance that this is completely incorrect. And if it doesn't work, that's why. Okay, so if I save you, and I don't do anything else, I need to reload my... Oh, what was it? It was Docker run this one, Temurin 17. Okay, so this is Eclipse Temurin 17. Bin bash that. Okay, so we come into you, and then we go into code. We go into our AI hasher, and I do we do Maven clean compile package, which will fail, unfortunately, because you probably have some errors due to this. Okay, so now I only have some warnings. I don't return anything at all, but that's going to be fine. Our hash is empty. We don't have any more errors, just warnings. That's okay. So now, Maven doesn't exist. How did it get Maven again? It's Did I use Maven on this? Oh yeah, and the ads are back. Okay, and back. Welcome back. All right, so what was the command that I used yesterday? I closed it off and I didn't. It was a RM on the Docker container, so it's not Maven here, and Maven is command not found. Oh wait, I remember. We had to install Maven, didn't we? So we had to do a apt update and apt install Maven like that. That's what we did. And then I can do a Maven. Then we could do a Maven install. I should have actually looked at what that was installing. I might as well have just used a -y. I was just going to blindly click yes. Okay, so mvm clean compile package. It looks like it is downloading a bunch of different packages that it is. Oh, error. What are you upset about? Failed to execute goal. Oh, right, because my test. But did you pull in? I think it pulled in Jackson, right? It would probably take way too long to just go through all this to find Jackson being downloaded. Okay, so can I now import Jackson and have it find it? Yes, it can. Excellent. Okay. So back to was it this one? Unchecked object mapper is what I want. Unchecked object mapper. So we're going to do it's not finding it. It must be from it. Remove Control K to see old commands in a bash history. Oh, I used apt, but it won't matter because in that case it was a Docker container that I had deleted and gotten rid of, so it didn't exist anymore. There's no history to look through if the history doesn't exist. And it's a completely different system, essentially. Mapper. Can you find it? Maybe? No. So should you switch to apt from brew? So I use Homebrew on my Mac, and I use apt on any Debian-based Linux system. I do not use Linux Brew. I don't really like it. I basically use Brew on Mac because it's the best that I found, and basically whatever is like the default on every other system. So Yum for Fedora-based systems or Yellow Dog systems, and apt for Debian-based systems, and what was pack for Alpine or whatever the other one was. I forget what it was called. Wait, is this a new class? So I do the request, I do that. Oh. Can I do a class in the same file? That's the reason why it doesn't find it. I didn't notice the class here. Am I allowed to do a class in one file? So if I just take you. Because my understanding was that classes in Java need their own files. But is that like a super old understanding of Java? Because I haven't really touched Java since like before 8. I haven't touched it since like really old. Like when it was still 1 dot and then it was the numbers after the 1 dot. That's the last time I touched Java at all. Okay, that's what you use. Sounds good. Now you have to figure out whether or not to try Helix instead of NeoVim. NeoVim has good configuration in Lua. What is the big draw of Helix for me? Lack of configuration, as in you don't need to do much configuration to get things to work. I kind of like that a lot. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of people have been switching to something like AstroVim, because it's a configuration pack for NeoVim. So it basically gives you a lot of the configuration stuff you would have to do yourself. It just is there already. That's what I like about it a lot. Okay, so map cannot be resolved to a type. Do I need to pull in a map? Oh, I do. Import map. Import type reference. Okay, so I import all those. Now, what are you upset about? That cannot be used with anonymous classes. Is this unchecked object mapper an anonymous class? Is that what it is? Uh-oh. Let's ban you two. Okay. You'll try Helix? Yeah, let me know how you like it. So I'm not allowed to use an empty whatever this is called in Java, like a type thing. So do I just do no? Okay, type references is raw type. References to generic type should be do I want to use do I need a generic like that? Oh, I probably then need to start using generics elsewhere, right? So without actually knowing how this works, would I do something like that? And throw you in here? Maybe not here. Ooh, so that works, kind of. Cannot convert from T to map string. So I need to tell T that it has to be limited to string. So this entire thing doesn't work, unfortunately, because of this type reference. So we need to kind of surprised. Okay, so map string. Read this read value. Catch the I exception, and then throw it, and then we can do a new object run mapper. Maybe just convert the object to string, as opposed to, well, which object are we converting? So I'm doing this read value. What does a type reference even do? Okay, so it's part of Jackson. I bet Jackson has changed since then, and the documentation for OpenJDK has not. So if I wanted docs from Jackson, they have a wiki. Oh, these are just the change requests, right? This is what changed? Yeah. So I would, let's see, home. Actual documentation is in here. Okay. Your Jackson tutorial. Oh my gosh. This is making me want to open this on literally anything else. Hold on. Arc still has all the ads on it too. I thought Arc auto turned off the ads. Do I even have any other? I don't have any of my other browsers on this profile, so I can't open up anything else. Tempores, hello, how are you doing today? Var string is a variable that has two output strings. Okay, that's how, oh, okay. So I can just literally say in here, is it capitalized string? Yeah, string. Incorrect number of arguments for type reference. It cannot be parameterized with arguments. Okay, so string. Map string. Good, just eating dinner. How things over here? Things are going pretty good. We are struggle busing with Java, Java 17, which has been interesting. It's been a thing. What are you yelling at me about? Insert there to complete. Oh, that's a nice error. I guess when I copied and pasted this in, it didn't do the tabbing correctly. That's the only thing I can think about, but also I'm trying to like read through this. Where was, okay, so this is open. Then we have our map. Oh, there it is. Try, return, that ends you. There. That's what it is. Okay, so unchecked object mapper. I need to use this inside of our handler. So new builder, new string, generate post, header build. And so if we have a response request, can I do new unchecked object mapper like that? No, we cannot. Okay, because it's not a body handler. You need a body handler for that. So now I need to go find, where did I leave? Okay, so I do new builder for HTTP request, new HTTP client, send. Oh, but they're doing this async. We're not doing this async. Huh. Then apply object mapper read value. Okay, so they create this separately. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll just do letter mapper equals new that. What language am I doing? This is unchecked object. It auto selected everything. Oh, it got rid of my mapper. So get a mapper like that. That's fine. Then I create a client. I send the request, and you did as string. And I have no idea where that's from. So hold on, you did as string. Which that's not going to return anything that gives me whatever this type is. Right, the body handler. It's a class, so I probably don't want to do that here. I wonder if I can create it up here. Oh, I could do the body handlers from string. Maybe that will work. Body handlers. Wasn't there a string of string? Returns a body handler that returns a body subscriber obtained from body string caret. Okay, so if I just do that. Unhandled exception type. So we have to throw this into a try at this point. So this is the first time we have to have a try. So try. Throw you in there. Catch. Whoa. Uh-oh. I don't remember what it was. It was something. Oh, come on. I was really hoping the type would be ARST cannot be resolved to like whatever the specific thing is. Okay, so what if I just say, hey, you're a string. That's an actual type. Oh, come on. Tell me what the actual exception is. Throws IO exception. Okay, IO exception is what it is. IO exception. Okay. I don't know what I'm going to do with that at all. Just rethrow it. Sure. Let me just rethrow it, because why not? You're not happy with that. Unhandled type. Okay, so I can't. Sure, whatever. If you're okay with me, unhandled exception type, interrupted exception. Can I have multiple catches? How do I handle either of these? I mean, could I just do this? Is this gonna was it interrupted? IO exception, or I think it was just that, right? Yeah, actually that worked. Cool. Okay, so I mean, we're clearly doing great work with the catches here. So I have now my response. So theoretically, I then send my response into this map to get the object back. I think that's what we're going to do. Now you apply object mapper read value to this, but I don't think that's how this is going to work, because I'm doing it synchronous, right? So I have the response back. Returns the body. I wonder if I can copy. Okay, so this should be a string, right? What if I call mapper? What is the type here? Hold on. It's what does it take in? Does it mapper write value new state? I don't think I want to write value. Read value? Read value maybe? Because I'm not actually seeing. Oh yeah, read value. Here's the name of the method, read value. So okay, we're gonna use read value on this. So I want to do return this read value, which is going to give me a map string, I think. So we're going to get a map string. Sorry, map string of the response body is equal to our mapper read value response dot, I think, body. The method read value string in the type unchecked operator is not applicable for the arguments object. Cool. because response body, now do I have to tell it what type it is, that you are a string? Maybe, but that's not how to do it. And then you're upset. Aha, because it's a raw type. So if I were to say that you're a string, now you work. Now you're happy. So now we have response body. Here is a map of string, and now we need to go find our curl request again. Helix is kind of cool. Thanks for the tip. NeoVim is much more backwards compatible with the old Vim. That might be a bug or a feature. I mean, it's definitely a feature, right? Because they wanted every package and module to be usable by NeoVim, because then it means like, hey, there's no reason you can't switch over. Helix doesn't even have a package manager yet, although they are working on one. It may take a little while to come out. Okay, so then we get this object back, and all I care about is the response. So I want, and so this should be a string. This is the hashed password equal to the response body get. Does the key have to be a string? I think it has to be a new string. New string response. Okay. The value of the, okay, so it's just not used. So that's great. Instead, we're going to return the hash password. Hash password cannot be resolved to a variable. What? Okay, what do I actually get with get? Is it actually a string, or is it just a string because I told it that it's a string? The recruiter is showing up in about half an hour or so. So in a couple minutes, I guess 1 minute, I am going to, ad break is in progress too. I'll wait until the ad break is done, and then I'll go ahead and switch over to, we're going to switch over to that. I need to send him a message and try to get the call going too, because that might take a while. So let's see. Oh, so it's going to be the thing or null. Okay, so it's a thing or null. Kuvi Man, hello. How are you doing today? Response body. Okay, so theoretically, you are now. Oh, you're probably not a string. So get. It returns V, otherwise it returns null. Wait, that works, right? Okay, I'm not exactly sure. Do I have? Oh, I already have a Google Meet link. Okay, perfect. So I don't have to organize a different call type thing. I will probably. Okay, so I think what we should do is I should take a break from this. Then we're going to start slowly setting up the other thing, because Will did say that he could show up potentially up to half an hour early. So I now, and also I want to make sure that the entire thing works at least by 12. So we'll be going for there. Am I being interviewed today for a Java job? No, we are not. I am not being interviewed for a Java job. I am working on a really great, awesome security project. Completely 100% absolutely serious, not actually being false at all with this. Anyways, I'm implementing a hashing algorithm in AI because that is the best type of hashing algorithm that you can possibly do, and I'm integrating that into FusionAuth, which is a Auth0-like system, except you can self-host it. So basically, you put in your password, and instead of being hashed to just a bunch of, with like SHA, some that's salted and good, or a bcrypt thing, or anything else that is tested by security people. Instead, it gets handed to an LLM that then converts that into a bunch of text, and then we store that into the database as your hash. What could possibly go wrong with that? It's perfect, right? Stacking, hello. How are you doing today? And so that's the project we've been working on. Coming up in half an hour or so, I'll be chatting with a recruiter here, and this is more of just a chat. It's less of an actual interview for me for a job. It's more of hey, we're gonna chat. Will is gonna answer any questions. We have a bunch that have been sort of added into Discord. I need to collect those too and make them available. So in the meantime, I need to get. I need to add in the audio source for the desktop. You got free time coming up in about 20 minutes. You can make that awesome. I realized that I can't actually have the call on my Mac because I don't have audio source into the streaming PC, which of course won't work. So let me see if I do which call do I want? Probably want a new window altogether. Right up here. Don't change anything else. One more question. Any opinion of switching the file system on the MacBook Pro to be case sensitive? So it's been a long time since I've looked into this, but way back in the day, we ran into some bugs. Maybe it wasn't bugs. We ran into some weird stuff that happened when we tried it with some scientists. And so therefore, I don't recommend it to anybody because there are just some odd things that can happen. But if you don't run into anything crazy, it's probably fine. But it's one of those things where I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, or I'd say do it on a test system for first. Don't on root file system. Okay. I am very happy to go with a just be careful. Be very careful with it. And you're maybe okay. There's some problems in macOS. I don't know if it's a problem. It's just definitely not designed for that. And therefore there's unknown, because if third party type stuff comes and does stuff and it doesn't realize, it will cause issues. Apple hasn't fixed bugs in this yet. Never will. That also sounds appropriate. I don't think they really care or want it to be. I think they only do it because some people demanded it, or the option is there and just whatever, we'll just keep it in. It's definitely one of those, be prepared to rebuild your system if you do it. Okay, so I need to get, let's see, where am I? I need to log into my, was it calendar? That's a 400 there. Okay, take me to calendar. Oh, I'm logged in already. If I hit you and I attempt to join. Okay, so you want to use the stream webcam, which can it use? And for headphones, it wants to use an Oculus device, which I don't even have plugged in. That's a terrible idea. And camera failed. Okay, cool. Which makes sense. Okay, can I... Microphone, can you be this microphone? Allow for that. And for the camera, ooh, I have my cat cam. Oh, because cat cam is being used by OBS too. Cool. Can I delete you from here? Okay, let's try this again. Maybe it's thinking about it. Nope, it doesn't like that. Oh, don't want to use the don't use the game capture. Don't use that cam. Okay, so I can't use my camera. Cool. I don't know if that will matter that much. I'm kind of... Oh, maybe I have to just remove it completely from OBS. Hold on, let me try refreshing. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so now this is just to make it so that Will can actually see me, and that's much nicer, so he doesn't have to look at the delay. Oh, that's fun. Oh, come on. Oh, you let the cables go on their own for 5 minutes or 5 months, and they get all tangled up. Okay, I'm gonna put Will, the camera for that, right next to you, all, so he sees what you all see. Except he gets the green screen. Okay, so there's that. That's good. He should be getting the same audio as in that you're getting through the Focusrite, so that should be good. And you all, I need to add in a source for that. Now, can I test? Is there a way for me to do a test? Were you able to hear that? Was it too loud? Well, I think I can just switch you over because I don't need to be in the other computer anymore. So if I switch this input to you, Yeah, now I can actually just look straight and I see chat and everything else. Okay, you heard it. Perfect. So then that means that when we start chatting, everything should just work as expected. So I have Twitch chat, YouTube chat, I have my OBS preview. Come on, I want you down here like that. My OBS preview, and then up here is where Will is going to be. Okay, so perfect on all of those things. Let me switch over here. Haven't received any there. This is great. Awesome. Oh, and then, I probably want to. Okay, so small chance that I'll destroy the stream. I have myself duplicating my Windows desktop right now. I'm going to extend. I'm going to switch it to extend. So I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm not streaming the Windows desktop yet, so it's hopefully going to be okay. I guess, you know what? Instead of doing that, maybe you don't need to. What if I add in a new scene? Okay, so hold on. Everything's going to go dark for a second. And we're going to call this Windows browser. I'm going to call this Windows Firefox. And can you hear me? Oh, you should be able to hear me. We should still have desktop audio. We're going to do a window capture. Want Firefox. Okay, so that pulls you in. So hey, you can see me. You can see me here like this now with the green screen behind me, which is, not as nice, but it is what it is. So that's actually from the camera that he's going to see me on. So that's great. And then, okay. You're going to be full screen. Cool. So when he shows up, we'll switch over to that scene and we'll all be good. Okay, so that being said, I am going to I'm going to send him a message. I think he said that email was best to get in contact with him. Got to make sure he hasn't sent me an email saying like, "Hey, I can't do it." That would suck. Okay, not seeing anything. Perfect. Okay, so Will. So hi, Will. I've connected everything up and am ready to chat when you are. I'm taking a very short break. And will be online. Can see the stream. Chat at. Okay. That's sent off. So we're 15 minutes early. So for right now, if any of you have any questions for Will, let me see if I can pull up his LinkedIn. do I have on? I have that. Don't sign me in. Okay, so this is Will Wegert. This is who we're going to be chatting with in around 15 minutes or so. So if any of you have any questions, let's start collecting them, and we can ask those as we go through. Otherwise, we'll just sort of be chatting around about just random tech stuff, recruiting, the job market, things like that. We've already got some questions in Discord, so I want to pull those up too. We have those in the jobs channel. Let me see. Okay, yeah. We have definitely several questions that we can pull in here. How about stickies? That's fine. Even though that looks absolutely awful. Okay, I actually can't see that. I can only see it through the OBS preview, and that's too small for me to actually see what I'm doing here. Okay, so we have educational requirements for getting one's foot stuck in the door, cover letters, referrals, how to get short stacked, shady practices that don't happen anymore, and ones that still do. We have how is the market right now? Are there more AA jobs than programming jobs? Oh, and hold on, let me. Okay. Hey, Will. I have you muted on stream, so stream can hear me, but stream can hear me, but not you. You can hear me. Let me know though when you're ready for it, and I can switch you over, and you can talk to stream, and everything will be good. Cool. No, I'm good. I'm all in now. All right. So in that case, if you switch over like another monitor or your phone or something, you can go and take a look at chat, and you can see what people who are there. Let me switch over to Windows. And that's on Twitch? Yes. And is it okay? I'm going to switch on audio now so everybody can hear you.
Yeah, no problem. You might have to show me or message me the Twitch link here.
All right. I did. It's in email.
Oh, perfect. Hey, gang.
Just SML. Hello. How are you doing today?
Hey, great.
Okay, so I'm collecting together a bunch of questions that we got from the community, which I absolutely love how it decided to make all the fonts are like different, because of course Discord makes them all different. And Omnifootus, I see your question. I'm adding that in too.
Putting in some adding my questions myself here on another screen.
Okay, I want no background. Okay, that works. Kind of works. give me that, and you give me. Oh, that was the opposite of what I wanted. I wanted like that, and you that. There. Okay, whatever. I can still read it. It's fine.
I can't see any questions. Can you? Oh, there we go. You know you're exposing Google Meet links, right?
Oh, oops. How do I do not know that, but now I do. Hold on. I can fix this. What? No, wrong keyboard. There. Fixed. Thank you for that, Skimmis. Also, hello. All right. So we have like 10 minutes or so before we launch, start like officially. So Will, how are things going? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. Things are good. I feel like I can never tell how the market's doing, right? For a while, I said it was picking up, and then I said that for a year, every month, and then I kind of got tired of saying it because the data didn't say that. So I try to track the data more than my emotions. But my emotions certainly are good. It really feels like market-wise, there's at the very least hope. And at the best, it seems like things are trending up. I'm not seeing the data catch up to what it feels like I'm seeing on my desk, but I sure as heck have been optimistic lately. Hopefully others are feeling that too.
Yeah, I'm not really searching for a job myself, and therefore like things always feel differently to us who are not searching for jobs. Obviously, if you are searching for a job, things like they've always felt, especially in the tech area, weird and like not great, especially compared to like non-tech. But that would be like, I guess maybe like I don't know if you want to start in like right now or not, but have you done recruiting outside of tech?
Yeah, so actually I'm in the office now, so I kind of have most people blocked out, but I've done a little bit. So I started in freight and logistics in trucking and trucking brokerage actually, and that's a whole different world. I could tell you a few too many stories. Very litigious, very different. But I try to keep a pulse on what the rest of the market is doing. We have an accounting and finance group here. They're very good. There's probably 8 or 9 of them. We have a group that does private equity. We have a group that does oil and gas. Quite a few different groups. So my group's pretty siloed out. But absolutely, it really does feel like the market as a whole is taking a hit. I mean, oil and gas runs almost opposite of everyone else, so I'll put that as an outlier. But I would say I've done a little recruiting outside, and I keep in touch with the 22 other recruiters of my team who are in other industries, and we've definitely all seen a big slowdown for sure in the last year and a half, in tech, out of tech.
Yeah. All right. Also, before we start, I just realized Ads Manager is going to try to run some ads during this hour, and I want to turn that off. And I need to remember how to do that. Where's Ads Manager? It's like predictions. Just like run a 3-minute ad. I don't want to do that. Okay, so no ad stream marker. No ad. Where does anybody remember where? Oh, snooze ad. No, snooze ads is just for 5 minutes. Does anybody remember where like the ads stuff is? Is that? Oh, it's not monetization ads. That's where it is. Don't show me the tutorial.
Got this thing down, Brooks.
I'm trying to. Yeah. Okay. Ads not scheduled. Just turn that off. Ad length and frequency, manual. Okay. So there. There's no confirm button, so I assume that it's now off, and there's not going to be any ad scheduled for the next hour or so.
Woo! We're official.
All right.
Should I dive
Cool.
into some of these questions? Should we wait? You want to wait till noon?
I know. I think we could probably go ahead and get started right now. So first off, Will, let's do some introductions because I've
Yeah.
just been introducing and saying like, hey, it's Will. You know, I gave I showed up the LinkedIn page of you, and it's just like you're a recruiter, but I think you've done more than recruiting in your life, and you're more than just a recruiter. So introduce yourself.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the opportunity, and just good to be able to share hopefully a little bit of insight on behind the scenes, and hopefully give some folks some valuable insight to grow in their careers. My career, yeah, I'm a recruiter through and through. So 7 years deep in it now, and I plan to keep doing this for another 20 years. So definitely a career recruiter. I think a lot of people come in and out of the industry, and that's okay. It's definitely a place I plan to be for a long, long time. So in that sense, I'd call myself a student of the game, a student of the practice, relationship based. But before that, and I don't advertise this a lot, because then I get bombarded with, will you write my resume? And my answer is no, but I'm happy to send you a link to some other good resume writers. But I ran a resume writing business for 7 years. Some of that, I was very, very good at the actual resume writing piece. I did a lot of interview coaching in that. And that was, pretty self-taught, but, one of the higher priced and higher value, I think, resume writers out there. So I did that for about 5 years before. So the career space has been where I've lived. That story is a whole other story on its own. I had 5 jobs in 8 months. I was really good at getting jobs. I didn't like any of them, and my wife kind of accidentally threw me into the fire. I was talking about starting this resume writing business, and she told a friend of a friend that I had one, and so that day, I guess I wrote my first resume, and 6 years later, I had a little firm that ran it, which I ended up selling. But I like this path a little more. It's different, but it definitely related. So some of the things that I still build on, though, is really on the, we'll call it personal marketing side, right? I mean, to over borrow I think a lot of people think recruiters help people get jobs. I would actually say most often the inverse is true, which is sometimes frustrating for folks I know, right? I help jobs get people. So the resume writers, career coaches, I'd still try to bring that approach where my job was to help people get jobs. And I still try to bring that one-on-one approach. And I think the best recruiters do, right? They're going to have that hand-holding. And not just myself, I know a lot of other good recruiters locally and others that they're going to help take care of you along the way, whether or not they have a job for you. So it's a delicate balance. We can get flooded, and try not to be I could fill my calendar every day with those kind of things, but try to help more in areas like that. So that's, long version of kind of where I come from. And yeah.
Well, and I think that also shows like a pretty big difference between some other recruiters that I met in the past where they didn't get into it from this like long line of like starting with resumes and then going up like throughout the process of getting jobs and then like having that passion. I've met plenty of recruiters that are just like, oh, I was a developer or I was a salesperson and now I'm in the
Yeah.
recruiting business too. And it's actually really nice to see somebody who is going in there because that is their passion and that they really care about it.
Yeah. I think that, I'd almost say that the closest field I think to a really, really good recruiter is real estate, right? We are a connector of, buyer, seller. And the idea is to find something that matches for everyone. And so we can do buy side, we can do sell side. But the best ones are truly matchmakers, not, I think sales is almost, you can do well in recruiting with a sales background, but I almost don't like that because I think that's why recruiters get such a bad reputation, and we earn it. I think I'd say 9 out of 10 recruiters are bad, and unfortunately there's been a culling of that market, over the last year and a half because it's been so hard. It's hard for developers and it's harder, I'd say, even for recruiters in this market. And so that means people leave in droves as fast as they came in. They're leaving, which is actually good. I think the overall quality of recruiters that are left in the market probably went up a lot over the last year and a half. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely believe that. All right, well let's get into some questions here because we got a bunch rolling in, and I'll probably prioritize people who are here live, but I have some that have come from the community sort of like previously who I don't know if are able to join right now. So Omnifidus right away has just sort of asked, what's the going rate for having a resume written?
Yeah, and I will send a link over. There's a lady named Amy Miller, and she does a lot in recruiting, dispelling recruiting myths. She has a blog of her own, writes a lot. So I'm going to defer to her link if you're actually looking for folks. She's got about 20 different options. Some folks actually in there. I trained 7 years ago, 8 years ago. So cool to see some of the folks. But going rate, you're not going to like it, but 150. It's probably bottom. I'd say 250 to 350 is about average for a good one. But just because you pay more in resume, it's kind of like recruiting, right? No barrier to entry. Lots of people do it. I think because they have an English major, and they know how to spell and grammar. They're a good resume writer. And I honestly was the opposite. I still can't spell or grammar. I paid someone to do that for me. I think a good resume writer is actually more of a marketing professional, right? They're really trying to understand your story and convey it in a compelling way. So it's less about the blocking and tackling of individual words. No one's reading your resume; they're skimming it, right? So I'd say, it's been a minute since I've really looked into it, but I mean, I was charging $750 for a resume, starting point, and then LinkedIn was another 500. I was top 10%, this is 6-7 years ago, of the market. I think you can have a really good resume writer for less. It's hard to look at. I think the best thing I would do if I was vetting one is I would look at a few before and afters. I think that even to an untrained eye, if you see a before resume and an after resume, not just the after resume, that's the best way to look and go, is this person any good? Can you see the transformation happen? So yeah, I probably 250, 300 is probably starting point of somebody who's pretty good. 150, a lot of times there's a couple big shops that outsource it all. So they'll have someone do an intake call and then they'll spit it out. And some of those are, the parent company might be taking $100 and then they're paying somebody $50, which you're not going to get the time you need. So there's a long version of, what I'd pay.
All right, awesome. So,
have you, Brooks? I'm curious. Have you been exposed to the resume writing world? Does that surprise you, or is that more or less than what you thought?
Well, I've chatted with you before about that, and you had told me your prices, and you had told me that you started at like 150, and then you had like a consultant who told you if you want to like get better clients, raise your prices, and then everything just sort of went better from there.
Yeah.
And I have had that same advice to me for consulting too, where it's like, if you want to get better clients, charge more. And it's something that over here in the United States, it's like pretty common. And if you're from like a country that doesn't have isn't in that world, and where like 150 just is like an insanely large amount of money, is probably going to blow your mind. But that's sort of like what ends up happening over here a lot. Things are very expensive, especially higher quality things.
Yeah. And I think the one thing folks don't think about there, I think there's two reasons why that works. And I believe that's a universal principle across most industries. But one is, when it hurts a little bit, you're going to listen to my advice. So I actually think my resume didn't get any better when I, started charging 250 and then 500 and 750. It was the same resume, but people actually listened to what I said, and they would kind of respect the process a little more. And so it works better for them because they were actually implementing the things versus the person that was, looking for bottom of the barrel, cheapest way to do that. But then the second piece, see if I can remember my train of thought on this. Come back to me. But no, I appreciate your insights on that.
All right. Let's go into one of the previous Discord questions from Blah, which was educational requirements for getting one's foot in the door.
Yeah. And we're talking specifically in software engineering, correct?
Yes, software engineering, regardless if it's going to be a software engineering company focused on that, or if it's just a software engineering job at a company.
Yep. Yep. You're going to get the rawest and what hopefully truest version of the picture that I see. Right. I'm just one recruiter, and I run a recruiter meetup, and I'm connected with others. So hopefully my opinions reflect that of the market as a whole. But I'd also be wary of the fact that this is just one sliver of the market. But I am certainly a big believer that functionally on the job, this is a personal opinion, maybe not actually answering the question, which I will get to, that functionally on the job, I don't know that formal education makes a huge difference. To the point where, I have my son, he's 6, and he's starting to do some robotics and Python coding, and he's having a ton of fun with that. And but I don't know that I'm going to push him to go to school, right? If he wants to, great, I'm all for that. If he doesn't want to, that's also great. I don't know that, especially in the software engineering space, and the same with my daughter, in a lot of the technical fields, I think passion is just as important. You can find the information, right, on most things. So if you're excited about it versus a degree, if you're not excited about it, then dad paid for it, and you're just kind of using it because I pushed you. I don't know if I feel great about that. On paper, all else being equal, I will share though, about 50 or 60% of my clients will look for a computer science degree. And so that will be a fundamental. Not all, and many of those that look for that as a preference and do believe that those fundamentals, matter. A lot of those are very open to folks who have proven their experience on the ground, who have proven their experience in production. And once you're past the, I'm going to make up a number here, but somewhere in the 4 to 7 year mark, they kind of don't really care what your education is. So it is a bonus. Sometimes it feels like though that bonus matters a lot more in San Francisco and New York backed companies if they're venture capital backed. But certainly it can help a lot. And I think the knowledge is what matters most. So I'm looking at the question here. Yeah. Can you read the question again? I want to make sure I actually address it directly and not indirectly here.
That question was, what are the educational requirements for getting one's foot in the door?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I generally encourage people, if you have an option and if your choice is to go pursue either education or go build something, go build something. I think that's the case every time, right? I think it's a great foundation to look at your production experience. But I'm a recruiter, and I'm an external recruiter, meaning people only come to me when they're looking for someone with usually 5 years or more minimum experience. So that does disqualify my taste of the world in kind of the, we'll call it entry and mid-level roles. So those roles do exist, and I think that is some kind of a degree of boot camp, or a degree is certainly going to help you on those early stage roles. However, people want to see what you built, right? And that can be a hobby, that can be a project, that can be open source contributions. Oftentimes that's more highly favored, especially on your first pass, right? I do believe that if you've built something within school, awesome. If you've built something outside of school, maybe even more awesome. Yeah, I'm going to say 50%. Don't worry about education too much. If it helps you build projects, do that. But yeah.
Well, I guess that leads to sort of like another question right now, which is, I'm not good at networking. Any advice on that?
Whoa. Yeah, I got 2 words. Be curious. Be curious. I think, and we've met several times in person, Brooks. I think you may be surprised. I've probably actually told you this before. I hate networking. I think I'm actually good at it, but I despise it. Going out, meeting new people, new faces who don't know me, and you're putting yourself out there. But I think networking lies in the power of the questions you ask, and not so much in the things you say, because everyone likes to talk about themselves. Everyone likes people that are curious about them. And as soon as you can open the door, and sometimes that means writing a list of 2 or 3 things, hey, Brooke, why Rust? Why do you love Rust? And like, we can have a conversation for an hour about that, because I'm genuinely curious. That's not a tactic. What is it about Rust that intrigues you over other things? Or, why streaming when other people are content to just, stay like genuine curiosity is the foundation of all networking. And as much as I hate it, I think I've become pretty good at it. And some of it's just practice, right? You just got to get out. But I think that you can call it networking like the face-to-face, but there's also the networking virtual like this, getting in Slack groups. I've found also that Slack groups, chat groups, either virtual communication helps build a foundation on which to launch. So, hey, I may go to a networking meeting once a month, but when I go there and I know 2 or 3 or 4 people virtually that I've never met, but I see that face and they see my face and they go, hey, I actually know that guy. That's that bald recruiter guy. And we're able to have a conversation based off of a digital relationship. It really opens that door for networking. So going back, be curious, be curious about other people. And I think that opens a ton of doors.
Nice. I completely agree with that. Being curious also makes it really easy to ask leading questions for others, right? You want them to talk more than you talk. So,
yeah.
All right. Let's see. Another question that we had a little bit earlier. How is the market right now? Are there more AI jobs than programming jobs?
What is the market? Are there more AI jobs than programming jobs? This is one where I have to be careful because I do not want to represent the market as a whole. You have to keep in mind recruiting comes into play. So the stuff that I see all day, every day is the areas that we'll call it that hurt. When someone is struggling to find talent, so I'll use an example even from when the market was great. There's probably 10 C#.NET Microsoft Stack jobs in comparison to every Ruby on Rails job. That said, I might have had an inverse. I've probably had 10 Rails jobs open for every Microsoft role because there's a lot more Microsoft developers. There's a lot more of those jobs, and they fill on their own. They don't need help, right? But when someone comes to a recruiter like me, it's because they are struggling to find said talent. And so the pain point was much stronger in Rails than it was in Microsoft in order to find folks. So they were willing to go find. They were willing to pay me to help them find said talent. So the market has really hurt. I think it probably hurt more for me and more for my peers in the recruiting world than is an actual picture of the market, right? Data. We've continued to stay in pretty low unemployment rates. I tend to specialize in venture capital, which got hit extra hard. So it does feel like the market is making a turnaround. The data I use, not levels, TrueUp. If you haven't, and I'll try to keep a list of all the links I need to send out. TrueUp, there's a layoff tracker and a market tracker. But the market tracker has started to trend up. So I think at its peak, according to Open Tech Jobs, there was some 500,000 almost, and we've kind of floated in the 210,000 in the last year and a half. The tiny little uptick, right? So it's starting to feel better. I think there's 2 things at play that people aren't thinking about a lot. One is just election cycle. I think that there is a lot coming back with venture capital, with Fed continuing to make money more accessible. I think that's going to really push money back into tech. But I think folks that even recruiters forgot about, because it's every 4 years, there's a huge slowdown across hiring across industries pre-election or 6 months before election. It's not about pick one side or the other. It's really more about uncertainty. When people don't know what's going to happen, they tend to just hold on to their money and do nothing, which means the market slows, it stalls. And so because of the election cycle right now, I think that regardless of who gets elected, in the US at least, we are going to see a pickup after that. And that's historically, talking to the recruiters that I know, in and out of the tech industry, they see that every single time. And we forget that because last election cycle was COVID. So we weren't really thinking about election. We were thinking about COVID. And so it's a little bit distracting to what happened to the market then. I am at the very worst hopeful and at the very best optimistic that the market's making a big turnaround. I don't think we're going to go back to 2022, 2021 kind of numbers. But I think if you've been waiting for it to pick up, we're probably close.
That's good. I mean, it's obviously hindsight is always best. Like we know what happened in the past. It's hard to predict the future, but having, someone like you being optimistic is it's a good data point.
Yeah.
So Omnifootus asks a good sort of like follow-up question here, which is, aren't AI jobs the same as data science jobs? And when you're seeing AI jobs versus data science jobs versus programming jobs, are you seeing those as like different separate things, or are you seeing sort of like AI and programming together and data science separate, or just, how does that look for you?
For me personally, I see them run in parallel. I don't do a lot of data science work. I'm doing more machine learning and AI work, usually meaning the companies I'm working with are an AI focused company, right? Because I do a lot of venture capital, obviously there's a ton of money right now flowing into early stage venture capital backed AI companies. And so because of that, I've gotten a little more into data science. I don't know that I can talk the data science talk as well as I'd like. So part of that's just where I specialize and where I've been known is definitely more on the programming side, which has bled more toward the machine learning side as well, and a little bit out of the data science. But the two run in parallel as far as what the market's doing. If you're building a team, you're building a team, right? And the jack of all trades is the first person you hire when you're a team of one, right? Somebody that somehow magically can do it all. And then you start building, hey, we'll add a couple data scientists. But those worlds, even for the folks that are experts in it, to data science managers, frankly, I think there's a lot of confusion right now about where the crossover is between data science and machine learning and software engineering. Because title-wise, I'm running a search right now for a full stack data scientist, which in and of itself is an odd title, right? It's kind of a data science or a full stack developer. And I think that it's probably a really good picture of the market doesn't really know, right? The manager doesn't really know. He knows he wants for machine learning, fundamentals. And there's some data science and there's some programming, but I think those worlds continually blend together.
Awesome. Okay, let's take a well, actually, let's do. Here's a question that's sort of like a blending and maybe a good transition question. How is the AI boom affecting non-AI focused either industries, companies, or just jobs?
Yeah. Not a good predictor, right? If I'm betting on myself, I wouldn't put money where I say, but it certainly feels like the AI boom has almost created a polarization, right? There is a ton of innovation happening with AI, and there's a ton of new business within business that's opening on AI. But what I feel like in contrast is it feels like the middle market is almost getting missed, and really interesting, what I'll call older or more traditional markets are also exploding, right? It feels like in the same time AI is going up crazy, I'm seeing a ton more in robotics. I'm working with a lot of legal tech startups that I haven't seen ever or in many years. I've only come across a few, and all of a sudden there's a ton. Farm technology, I'm seeing that blow up. And sometimes the intersection, they're in, right? There's one that I came across and had some really good conversations with that was using AI to help farmers write grants for some, but what a weird intersection, right? AI and farming. So I'm seeing a ton of that. Another one that was a janitor company. So I think it's interesting to see some of these kind of old or forgotten markets pick up at the same time as you're looking at the bleeding edge. You're also looking at some of the just like backbone of, we all eat and we all do legal stuff and taxes, and some of the more what I would call boring and less sexy type of industries are also making a boom or are booming right now. So it will be interesting to look back in 5 years and see where each of those came about. But certainly does feel like it feels like the AI side is almost pushing folks to run the contrarian side as well.
Let's see. Okay, so Omnifota says, when you study AI at the University of Wisconsin, it is in the College of Data Science, which draws on computer science, statistics, and a couple of others. Will is not super focused on this area. I'm guessing using AI to help farmers use grants is not an AI job, it's a programming job. So this brings in a really good sort of like distinction between programming and creating AI, sort of like the data sciencey part of it, or using AI as a programmer, because I can use AI by implementing AI systems and tools, but I have not created the AI myself. Even if I fine tune an AI, I am not necessarily doing like the data science part of it.
Yeah, every bit of that sounds correct, and again, yeah, I would agree. I don't specialize there, so I think it's an important and noted distinction. I think when I'm talking about AI and in general, I'm probably talking more about AI-enabled companies than actual AI itself, or AI jobs. I don't know that I've ever actually taken on a real AI job. And I would say even more, right, the fundamentals of machine learning is probably where I tend to specialize a little bit more. How are we using machine learning to enable programming versus AI jobs?
Right. Awesome. Okay, well that allows us to sort of transition into some non-software specific jobs. So one question here is, which non-software focused industry currently has the most software related jobs in your opinion?
Non-software focused industry has the most software related jobs. I don't know if I would say this is a non-software industry. I don't know that I'm going to be able to answer that well. I think two industries come to mind, but one could say they are very software adjacent or software related. Fintech, it certainly feels like there's a lot in fintech, and I think that depends on the company. Some of those companies are very software focused, right, and are truly tech companies, and some are absolutely not, right? And all else being equal, if I'm a software developer, I am going to try to stay in a tech focused company where somebody sees me as a path to the future, not just a necessary evil, right? And not that either are bad, but it does feel like the market when it tightened, there was a lot of the loss of jobs with non-tech companies that were pushing out folks that they thought, hey, we can shrink this cost center, versus when it's central to what they do and they need to sell it and it needs to be right, if that piece is broken, then that person is needed and they needed to be exceptional, right? So fintech is one I've seen a lot of. Some of that's just banks, right? Mortgage company stuff, just regular. Some of it's payments. I've seen the payments industry do well, although I'd argue that's probably a little more software focused. And then the second one that came to mind, I don't know if it's a strong answer, but health tech, and some of that again is fundamentals within a hospital, which I would call not really a software industry. But then there's a lot of health tech that is, it's a health. They're selling a product that is sold to hospitals, right? Which is, I would call that absolutely a software job. So I think, and then some companies bleed in between, but certainly feels like those are two industries that aren't purely software, that are taking up a lot of the market right now.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. I see a lot of hospital, like healthcare based jobs and companies recently, although a lot more sort of on a startup side than on the sort of like the larger company side. So the question of like how many jobs can you get there might be a little bit limited until those companies sort of get bigger.
Yeah. And then there's always the intersection, right? As you're sharing that, I'm thinking about kind of the robotics world, and in Boulder, in our area here, there's for example, Sunday. It's grass, an eco-friendly, grass and fertilizer company, right? But they have tons of software jobs. So, I'm seeing the robotics, or I've seen that intersection of, again, we can just call it farming or grass or robots, but I've seen that the robotics world do some interesting things. And some of those are true programming jobs, right? It is a little bit more embedded software, and then it starts to bleed, which one, where do you define the software line? Whether it's robotics operating systems, but seems like that's a booming industry, things that you can physically touch and build, not just a digital product.
Yeah, and I think that's something that some companies, like having talked to some non-technical founders, sometimes they forget that there is software in IoT. There is software in all of
Yeah,
our cars. There is software in our refrigerators now. It's everywhere.
yeah. And then there's the interface, right? I mean, I worked with a company that made balloons, and so their entire product is balloons that are going up into the stratosphere, and they're doing mapping with it, and they're looking at weather. But you and I still have to interact with that. The end user still has to interact with the data, and so they have a pretty substantial and very strong software team. And I think in the tech boom that we had over the last 2 or 3 years, everything that venture capital was investing in was something that's digital and very scalable, and you can grow it 10x or 100x, overnight. And I think that there's been a little bit more of a humbling there, where people are now much more interested in something that is not going to go away, which is our refrigerators and our lawnmowers and our grass. Because as fast as it can go up, it can come down as fast, right? And I think that the market is appreciating a little more slow, steady growth in general. And yeah.
I love Omnifitus's joke. I don't work on cold software. No smart refrigerators for me. All right.
No cold software, frozen software.
Okay, let's talk about some, like, the act of getting the job, and some things that are like both good and potentially really bad here. So one question was, what can you comfortably say about ageism in tech?
Yeah. What can I say about ageism in tech? It's very real. It's very, very real. And, one of my least favorite words to hear uh, from a hiring manager, and something I hear a lot, is culture fit, right? Or culture add, because at some fundamental level, people hire people they like, right? That is truth. Like, you want to work with people you like, but we can talk about any kind of ism, um, and but I don't know, that word culture fit so often feels to me like a clouded way um, to discriminate on age, and so it's something that, really more going back to my resume writer roots. I strongly encourage folks. It's a little adage I use a lot: is if it doesn't help, take it out, right? And so often, a resume would be written, and people want to talk about, and this is not non-software. This is a personal friend of mine, right, that I work with. So this will be a good example. But he spent 12 years 15 years-ish in international sales. And then he moved into an analytics job for 5 years, and then he did international sales again. And he wants to stay in international sales, but he had a 2-page resume, and 1 page of that was taken up by the analytics component. And so as you look at that resume and you look at the story, you're like, sales guy or analytics guy or sales guy? Well, it was an easy fix for me, because I spent 6 years doing it. I said, well, let's just don't lie. Keep those jobs in there and don't talk about them, right? Make it very clear from the physical amount of the page that you're taking up who you are and what you want to be. And so, my general encouragement is, just take it out, right? And that was his example. But for, I think to help reduce discrimination there, don't lie if somebody asks, but you can eliminate jobs that don't matter, right? You can use the plus signs big, right? You can say 25 plus years experience as developer, or you can say 15 years plus years experience. Both are true. And, there are ways to help people focus on the things that matter, which is, can you do the job and will you do the job well, instead of focusing on things that don't matter, being what you did 27 years ago. So it's very real. And there are some very real ways you can help eliminate the propensity for those things to happen, especially in VC, right? It's very real, and I'd like to say, it's not as simple as this. I'd like to say the companies that are discriminating that way, you don't want to work for them anyways, but that does feel like a little bit of a cop out for me to say that. It doesn't change the systemic issue at all.
Well, yeah, and it brings it's an interesting problem, because there's the purposeful exclusions. That's probably the companies you don't want to work for, is the ones who literally create a policy saying no people older than, I don't know, some arbitrary age. But then there's the people who are not necessarily trying to be exclusive. Sometimes they feel that they are being inclusive, but they still have implicit biases that will affect them during the entire hiring process. And I don't know if you have any suggestions for that, like for working with that as a software engineer trying to get a job.
There, I guess maybe rephrase the question for me there. How do we, as job seekers, try to help the hiring manager eliminate
or
accidental bias?
How to, it's like how not necessarily to help them, because like as a job seeker, I don't really feel I can help them, but how do I work around this problem?
Yeah. It's exceptionally difficult. It is exceptionally difficult. I wish I had a lightning answer. I think the problem is that the problem exists, right? And so it's almost unfair to put the onus on the person doing the application. And really the change happens on the hiring manager side, not on the applier side. So then it feels like anything we do is we're trying to make their evil less evil, right? And as a person who wants the job, like, do what you got to do, be honest. But I don't know that I have a lot of specific advice. I think those are more things that on the hiring side, right, there are ways to kind of give blind look at resumes, right? And so some of us are doing things like that, or there are ways to compare side-by-side technical challenges, right? So that we're looking at the function of what you do versus the implicit bias that we're going to have. And so, companies and that's hard, right? I work with a lot of small companies. And so companies that have 3 people, it's hard to add that to your process of, how we're going to evaluate hires here. And so, I think in some ways, theoretically larger companies should be better at that, and I think in general they are. Not always. There's a lot of exceptions there, but
yeah. To add my 2 cents in, I would probably argue, like, going way back to that networking sort of like question / discussion. Networking is the way to get around it as best as possible. It's like, I guess there's no really way around it. It's more of like, to me, networking gives us a second chance, like a free second chance in a company. Because if you can get somebody on the inside to like you as a person, then there's a better chance that they're going to like actually pay attention to you as a person, as opposed to just, another candidate.
Yeah. I think also talking about your future is a way that really helps. I think sometimes I've seen ageism come into play where the manager is legitimately concerned that you're going to retire in 1 year and then they have to retrain someone, right? And if you tend to work for another 3 years or 5 years or 7 years, like make that explicitly clear. Sometimes I think I've seen it be helpful for job seekers to quote unquote hide kind of their age to help eliminate some of that implicit bias. But I think sometimes just tackling the fear in the room head on also helps. And so I think that, I think that explicit statement that's like, I've seen that help where I felt there was a perceived bias, and then someone tackling the actual reason why the bias is an issue, right? I don't want to retrain someone in 2 years, right? Well, let's take that out of the equation. And then I don't care if you're 90 or 70 or 50 or 20, right? Like, I just want somebody who's going to be in this role for 5 to 7 years. And that's a whole interesting thing in of itself. We work in tech, who works for 5 to 7 years at the same company. But I do think there is a traditionalism that we all like to pretend like we're going to stay at a company for 5 to 7 years. And managers like to think that, even though they're not going to be there either. But I think, playing into that assumption sometimes helps for anyone at any age. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And
Yeah, I feel like
oh,
yeah, to this question there or comment, Silicon Valley especially. I mean, that I grew up in a farm town, right? So my dad was at the same company for 30 years. And so when I started working in tech, I remember that was the biggest shocker to me. I asked a bunch of folks in San Francisco, I was recruiting on a San Francisco role. And I said, why are you looking? And they said, I've been here 3 years. And I said, no, but why are you looking? And they said, I've been here 3 years, like as if I was completely crazy for not understanding that it was time. And 100% the 3 years or 4 years. I think talking about either telling me you plan to stay, or if you don't lie. Again, I want people to be honest, but I think talking about the fundamentals, you can avoid the question with saying, hey, the things that would keep me interested for 5 to 7 years in the future would be interesting technical challenges, staying cutting edge, right? I'm making stuff up here, but I think you get the idea. If you talk about the ideology of what would keep you at a place for 5 to 7 years, that allows both you and the hiring manager to live in the stream as if you would stay there. And maybe you do, right? I mean, maybe they do, but I think talking about the principles behind, what keeps you engaged at work is a really good way to be both honest and talk about the future as an interviewee. And shoot, maybe you can have 3 jobs within the same company that bring, every 3 years that bring those new challenges that you might need. And it doesn't have to change. I mean, companies change too, right? So there's some elements of that that I've seen really keep folks engaged and keep managers interested in them.
Omnifidus actually has a really good point here, which is that while there is a lot of job hopping, there also is a lot of job staying still in the industry. Well, in all the industries. Like, for example, CEO of NVIDIA has many of the original people from 30 years ago still there. And that is something that I have noticed myself. Like, when I've been a manager at some companies, people will stay longer than like they might normally stay otherwise because they have good managers, because they really like the product. There's a lot of reasons for people to stay, as well as a lot of reasons for people to jump.
Yeah. And it obviously doesn't apply to all aspects of life, but one thing I deeply believe, I have to say this the right way, I don't believe people should always be interviewing. I think that, if you're always keeping an eye out, I think you should be open if something better presents itself. But, as a recruiter and talking to, thousands of managers, right? If your resume is you had one year job, 1 year job, 1 year job, 1 year job, 1 year job, the manager is going to assume the problem is you, right? If you had 1 year job, 6 year job, 2 year job, 1 year job, 6 year job, it's a lot easier to tell a story in which those companies went under, or those managers were not good, or there was a reason, right? Because you've proven that you can be a person who's fixed for a minute. So I think that is very true. But the piece I wanted to come back to in that is, it's almost a problem where I've come up with a recruiting strategy for this. I encourage folks who have been at a company, we'll say 6 years or more, I encourage them to take interviews with companies they are dead certain they're not going to want the job, that even if offered, they weren't going to take it. Because, and the most vivid example of this that happened, excuse me, I would talk about Ruby on Rails jobs. I had a Ruby on Rails candidate who was very good. He was at same companies for 8 or 9 years. I knew he was exceptional. And I had 7 open positions that he could apply to. And this was 3 or 4 years ago. And so I've adjusted my strategy since. He selected his favorite 5, and we got him interviews at all 5. And he was second man out 4 times in a row. And we had went with best company first. So his 5th out of 5, he ended up getting that job, and he's still there. He likes the job. It's okay. But I think we did it wrong. I think that he hadn't interviewed in 7 or 8 years. He was rusty. He was a very good developer. I knew it. He knew it. And I think he was second man out because he was good enough at his job that overcame the fact that he was very rusty in interviews, right? And so we can talk about it's the skills of, whether it's elite code, whether it's a pair programming, a whiteboarding exercise, whether it's the interpersonal stuff, it's the being curious, it's the conversation. They don't like you quite as much. In a competitive market, interviewing is a different skill than being a good developer. And unfortunately, being a good developer does not mean you are going to get the job. I mean, we always say, that internally, it's not 100% true, but the most prepared candidate gets the job, not the best. And that kind of sucks, especially if you're the best, right? But the nice thing is, you can be the most prepared and beat out a lot of people. So, I believe deeply that if you don't plan to stay at your company forever, every once in a while, go take a couple interviews, and one of 2 things happens. You take the interview and you go, I have it good, I'm going to stay, or you take the interview and you go, man, I thought I had it good, but it's actually better on the other side. Maybe I should do a little more of this. And either way you decide, you've landed at, I am less rusty at interviews. I kind of still know what's going on. My process isn't 8 years old, and it helps so that when that perfect job does come along, and that's a lot of what I do is I go tag people that aren't looking and say, hey, I know you're not looking, but this job is probably an upward move. But is the job right for you, and can you get it are 2 different things. And so hope that it gives some insight to folks of like, don't be interviewing every month, if you're happy. I'm not suggesting that you should, but keeping that saw sharp is a very valuable skill to have when the time is right. I've seen that hit people that I believe deeply were the right person for the job, and we couldn't get them across the line. And so I take that very personally as advice to the market in general.
Let's focus in on that like strategy of getting a job, because you and I both know anybody who's like gotten multiple jobs in the software world knows that the act of getting a job has almost nothing to do with the act of programming itself, because interviewing is just, it sucks, and it sucked for a long time. What are you seeing as trends? Like, are you seeing more or less or the same level of like whiteboarding interviews, leak coding, things like that? What are you seeing?
Yeah. There's a regression to the mean, right? So 2.5 years ago, when I say the job market, the candidates, the developers had the leverage, there were a lot more jobs available than there were people, right? And so in most cases, in order to try to attract the best talent, companies were shrinking their interview process. They were following practices that candidates wanted more. And it was usually much more streamlined. I would say easier, but a lot of it was just the time and effort that went in. So what I'm seeing now is the inverse of that, right? So I'm seeing actually a lot of companies go back to practices that I don't love. I don't have a lot of influence on, but I'm seeing a lot more leak codes, right? I'm seeing a lot more hacker ranks. Some of that is a function of time, right? When you have 3 applicants to a job and you've been looking for 3 months, you're like, what do I need to do, right? Let's just have one conversation and I'm gonna hope for the best. When you have 300 applicants and they're all emailing you and they're all emailing you and they all really, really want it, you have to have some sort of funnel, right? And so we are going to, and so I do understand it. I don't like it, but I do understand why it's happening more. It's, let's just see how many of these 300 are willing, first of all, to spend 2 hours of their own personal time doing this leak code. And then how well do they do? And so it is a universal comparative metric. And I'm seeing a lot more of that from the hiring manager side. Seeing a lot more, the process is getting longer again, right? I'm working with a client now that's slowly coaching them out of it. But they had a 6 or 7 step interview process and they're saying, hey, it's taking me a long time to hire. And I'm like, well, it shouldn't be. But they feel each step is necessary. And the unfortunate truth is a lot of them can get away with what I would call bad hiring practices in this market because somebody else is willing to do it if you're not. And so I think you have to accept that. That is the job market, by some nature, right? It sucks. I'd say don't. It sucks now, but it also didn't 2 years ago, right? So I think there is some balance of that. That's, I had people walk in and get hired after one interview because they knew if they didn't make the offer, they'd lose them, right? And so I think we have to understand there is some level of balancing. And so as much as I'm saying maybe know that the companies have the leverage right now, I'm not saying that as a universal practice. I'm saying that more as that is the nature of the time right now.
Yeah. So basically, it sucks right now. It'll probably get better at some point in time. And we have to pay attention to the job market. When we're in a boom, you won't have to focus on like learning the art of interviewing quite as much as when we're in times of lack. I don't know what the right word is for that.
But yeah. Well, I think that even goes back to the idea in my own world as a recruiter, right? The nice thing about knowing what's going on in the market is we're scaring recruiters away left and right. It used to be everybody saw there's a lot of money in it. Let's do that. So easy. And so let's become a recruiter. And so people were flooding into the market in droves. And I think that it's kind of a similar principle that works in the job market that, I do respect it. It's super frustrating. And it's frustrating for me to watch a client, say, we're going to add a 5th step here when I told them there was only 4 and they're adding another round of some tedious interview. But I also know that if there's 3 people that, if you're feeling frustrated and there's 3 people in the process, the other 2 probably are, and at least one, maybe both are going to bail out. And you're the only one left. That makes your chances, one heck of a lot better. So I do, if you're willing to have the patience or long suffering or, in that, it certainly increases your chances. And that depends on a level of, if you're happily employed and you love your job, well, if the company has a bad interview process, just tell them to go pound it, sorry, later, but it depends on your level of leverage there. And sometimes then actually believe this deeply about the holidays as well. A lot of people say, "Ooh, holidays are coming up. Let's slow down. I'm going to wait because all the jobs come back in the market on January." That is correct, except for a huge asterisk. I'll use real estate again. Anybody, if you look at the prices of houses that sell in December, there's a lot less in terms of volume, but you could get a good deal in December. Hiring is the same. There's not a lot of jobs out there, but the amount of candidates that are looking in November, December between Thanksgiving and New Year, very little. And the amount of people that are looking to hire, very little. But those that are, they're kind of desperate. Not just on the candidate side, but on the client side, I'm talking about the company's hiring. And so there'll be a much lower pool, and they really want to get you in by the end of the year. And so I actually think that's one of the best times to look for a job, in the same way that I think it's one of the best times to look for a house, is December. Right? Because nobody else is doing it, and you're going to get the best deal with the least competition. And so, total adjacent aside there, but it's something I deeply believe and I coach people on constantly. They're like, yeah, I'll probably start looking after the new year. Everybody else is too. Don't get the rust knocked off, get some interview practice, and you might land an awesome job in December, even though there's not many available.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. That is like completely opposite advice that I've ever heard of, but it also makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I don't want to say that the quantity is out there. I think the real estate is the perfect parallel. It's, the few people you're like, somebody needed to leave at December 15th. And so they gave me a killer deal on the house. And that kind of happens a lot. And sometimes too, from a recruiting side, I don't work internal, but I've come across this enough that it's I would call it a trend. Recruiting and HR at an internal company, they have a budget, they have a spend that they can spend on, and that spend goes away if, depending on when their fiscal year ends, but that spend oftentimes will go away on January 1. So I actually have almost a top 3 month every single December, sometimes a record month in December, because a lot of these companies are saying, hey, Will, we have X $1,000 to spend on you, on me as a recruiter, to fill these really hard roles, and we never had budget for it, but we have, this money goes away if we don't do it now. We need someone to start before December 30th, or at least sign an offer before December 30th. And so the agency side picks up quite a bit then too across industries.
I don't have like a business hat that I can throw on here to like do a little bit of explanation of that, but I'll do my best. The for those of us who are engineers here, which I'm imagining is almost all of the viewers here right now, a lot of companies follow this really strange rule of use it or lose it, where your department, let's say you're an engineering department and you want to hire new developers, they'll give that department a budget for the entire year or the quarter. And if you fail as the manager of that department to use that budget up by the end, the next year, they reduce your budget by the amount you did not use. And so a lot of companies will be like, oh my gosh, we're getting up to the end of the fiscal year and I have enough budget to hire like another developer. I have to hire a developer now. And otherwise we're going to like not be able to have any budget at all next year. And it's stupid. Mm-hmm. It's horrible, but it happens a lot.
Yeah. If I'm a business leader, I think it's real bad. But if I'm a job seeker and that helps me get in when I've been struggling, you got to take advantage, right? So no, business hat earns. I can see it on you. Well explained.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so we had another question, which was, I'm not the best. When we get older, being the best stops being the priority for us. Should someone like this be working as a recruiter instead?
So the question about transitioning from a software development world to a recruiting world?
Yeah.
It's a really interesting idea, and I've seen it work well. And poorly. So I have some personal friends locally that, one, I won't share his name, he's brilliant. I care about him a lot. I helped him get his recruiting business off the ground, 2.5 years ago. I don't know that he needed my help, but it's a cheat code, right? I mean, things, I'm just a really, really good keyword matcher at this point, right? Like I know I can talk and, and you think I know what I'm talking about, but I don't. I can't write a line of code to save my life. So when you actually understand the deep technical fundamentals of what you're recruiting for, man, you can do well when things are good. But I think just like software engineering is a industry in and of itself, and there's things I will never understand, I think there's some things about recruiting that are very hard for others to understand, and you have to be a student of that game to really get it. And so, in fact, I can think of 1, 2, 3 software engineers turned recruiters that did exceptionally well in 21 and 22, right? The highs were much higher than they were for me. And I also saw those same 3 people crash hard. That's okay. If you know what you're at, all 3 of them out of business now. Decided you're too hard, don't know what I'm doing. And I think my floor is a lot lower because I'm a career recruiter, right? And so in the same way that, should I transition to development when things are bad? There certainly are, recruiters doing that. And that's not a bad path either. I think as long as you know what you're getting into, I think it could be a really good path. And maybe there's a hybrid. Maybe there's a way to get more involved in the technical side of the process within a firm, because recruiting's so big in and of itself, right? I'm just a sliver. I'm agency recruiter, which means I'm only, agency is probably, I'd have to look at the numbers, 20 or 30% of the market. In the UK, it's much bigger, but in the US, it's not large. The US companies are mostly pushing for recruiters to go internal, and so hire direct instead. And I think there's a decent path in that. I think I think the path, you can make more money as a developer. I don't think the recruiting path is bad, but certainly not a. I think sometimes sticking it out. What's the rule? You some number of hours, and I'm going to completely butcher. Was it 30,000 hours or 7,000? There was some rule that like you could be top 1% in the world if you just spend X number of hours in that thing. And so there is something that I think people who are career switchers all the time struggle because they're chasing the next thing. That isn't 100% the case because, again, some of my friends who became recruiters, software engineering recruiters who used to be software developers, they probably doubled what I made in any given year because they were twice as good at it because they had the cheat code. So I don't know. I don't know that that's, hopefully that's the discussion that leads to some ideas more than being an answer. I don't think it's a bad idea. I'm not convinced it's a great idea either. I don't know.
Well, it's a sales position, right? And in sales, you make as much as you sell. And especially if you go into business on your own, you're going to have almost no overhead. And that fee that you get, which is that 30% fee that you normally charge?
Who?
Recruiters?
No, I would love it if it was that high. Usually, yeah. I mean, industry standard is, depending on who you ask, 20 to 25 is industry standard. But there's so many different models, right? There's staffing models, which again, in the agency world, probably if we'll say 80% is agency or is internal and 20% is agency. Of that 20%, probably another 80% does contract and temporary. So even what I do, direct hire, is a pretty small part of that world. So I'm pretty niche, and somewhere between 20 and 30 is standard for that niche. But there's a lot of hourly models that are doing well now as well, where you get paid for your time, not paid for your output. And there's arguments for and against, right? I mean, I do a lot of work that I don't get paid for, a lot. And so it's, it can be very frustrating. You have to be willing to get punched in the mouth a lot in the piece that I work in, right? I mean, they always say you have to sell to the client, sell to the candidate, and then there's the human factor. So, the ups and downs are up and down. So the hourly model takes a lot of that out of the equation. And then when I can tell a client, hey, your 7-step interview process is dumb, at least I still get paid to follow your dumb process until we figure out that, I can coach you out of that, versus, when we inevitably lose every candidate to another offer 3 months in, and I've spent, 120 hours on this and I didn't earn a dime. Whew, that's frustrating, versus the hourly model is picking up because of that. The internal model is picking up because of that, which is ironic, right? Because our fees are a lot. I think that part of why the fees are a lot is because of, it's a cycle that blends on itself, is because we keep, I think the industry gets frustrated that a lot of times we get duds out of it. So we keep our rates pretty high to compensate for the zeros, right? So it's kind of an interesting balance that, in some ways, if I were on the hiring side, there would be an argument for an hourly or internal model. I think specialized niche roles, which is a lot of what I fill, right? I mean, I was talking to you the other day about this async Rust role that I was working on. Like, there was 70 people that could do the job. That they wanted somebody who was in startup in the US, who had been open source async. Like, that's a very niche. And then I have to, use my recruiting skills, not just to find those people, but convince them to have a conversation with me. And they already hate me because I'm a recruiter who wants to talk to a recruiter, and that's okay. I don't mind that they hate me. But they have to convince them to talk with me. And then I have to convince them to go work at this company that I don't know much about and quit their job to do it. And, that there's a lot there. But then the fees make sense, right? If I can do that, it's the fees start to make sense.
Yeah, and I guess let's talk. I know we're pretty much at the hour point, but I think it's really good, especially when we're talking about like any kind of recruiting and fees, to get some maybe assumptions out of the way, because I think that there's a lot of false sort of like information about like what the fees are and who pays the fees. So tell me a little bit more about like what, like if you're a job seeker. So if somebody is like working with you and they get hired as a programmer for a company, how does that fee? Let's just assume for easy math that they make $100,000 in a year.
Yep. So it's a finder's fee. That's the best way, the simplest way to understand it, right? The company always pays. It does not come out of your salary. It does not come out of your compensation. If it does, excuse my French, run the hell away as fast as you can. If anybody ever insinuates, I do that. I've only come across it maybe twice that I can think of where somebody was like, well, if I'm going to pay your fee, I'm going to have to pay the candidate less. I'm like, well, then you don't want to hire. That's okay. If you're hiring on your own, I'm good with that, but don't bring on a recruiter. And, I think any recruiter with any sense of self-respect or respect for the candidates they're representing, it can't be a deduction in their salary. Because then ultimately the candidate is paying, and that's never the way it should work. It's just like a realtor, right? It's if you help me buy a house, like, you get a fee. But if I buy 0 houses, doesn't matter if I've taken you through 20. There's no fee attached, and so the fee comes from facilitating the sale, right? It's the company, and again, it is a misconception, I think. We use the word headhunter closely with recruiter, which implies that, if Brooks is looking for a job, I'm going to help him find a job. I might help him find a job, but the person that writes my check is actually the company I work for. And so I am in the real estate world, I am the seller representative and you're the buyer, right? And so I will show you my house and I will tell you why this house might be good for you, but it might not be good for you, and that's okay. And then you don't pay anything and you walk away. And that's great. A good recruiter, just like a good real estate agent, is going to, they're not going to sell you, they're not going to scam you. They're not going to, put snake oil on it. They're going to be a facilitator of the transaction, keeping in mind that the seller is the person that they're in charge of representing. And I think that creates, again, a misconception in the market that I have a lot of people that are like, Will, can you help me find a job? And my golly, I hope so, but it might not. And I think, again, that's why I lean toward career recruiters, not just recruiters, right? I have a lot of friends in internal, and they're very good at what they do, but their job is more than mine. I have 20, 30, 40, 50 companies, probably 50 I've represented in the last 7 years, right? So, and then I have relationships outside of that I haven't formally represented. Companies haven't hired me, but I can introduce you, right? I can say, hey, I don't work for this company, but this person you could, let me just introduce you, talk with them. And then guess what? You remember me and they remember me when you might need a recruiter, right? But so I think an agency recruiter who's career minded, knowing that if I treat you poorly, that's my reputation for the rest of my life, for my career, right? So I don't want to paint an impression that us career recruiters are so selfish that we would not try to treat or help individuals. That is not purely the case. We have incentive, and hopefully most of us are good enough people to just care about people. But the flip side, if I'm being blunt, I have probably 10 times a day now somebody sending me a message that says, hey, my friend was laid off, can you help them? And I want to help all of them, but I can't fill my calendar every day with everybody that's laid off unless I have a job for them. And so what I say every time now is, great, send me their resume. We'll look at it. And if I have a job that's close to what they do, I will call them. Otherwise, I'm wasting their time. They're wasting my time because I actually can't help today. It's not about not caring. That's not my job. That's a resume writer's job. It's to help the candidate move through the process and help them tailor or an interview coach's job, right? That there are people that do that. The recruiter's job is to help the company. And sometimes that means, sometimes that means you in the process. And I certainly hope that is, right? Generically, anybody I'm on the phone with. But I start every conversation exactly that way. I say, hey, look, doing this a while, going to be doing it for a long while. I hope this job's a perfect fit. I don't have a conversation unless I have a job that I think might be a fit. But I also I want to understand your fundamental goals. And so I think that's probably a sign of a really good recruiter versus not. A bad one will just tell you the job. They'll say, hey, company X growing like Y, X tech stack, X location, do you want it? And going full cycle back to the beginning of our conversation, good recruiter is curious, right? They're going to say, hey, Brooks, where do you want to be in 5 years? What do you enjoy the most? What titles intrigue you? Why? What kind of people do you like to work around? What fundamentally drives you? And then they're going to say, this role that I also was curious about when I asked the manager, here's where it aligns, A, B, C, and D. Here's where it doesn't align. And so you have to look at this role as a 3-year role, not a 10-year role, or this might be a job that pays the bills, not a job that you would actually like. Or they might say, you check all the boxes, my client would love to have you. You don't want this job. And I say that 3 times a day, right? And that I love being able to say that because, again, being curious, being a consultant, I don't want you in a job you're going to quit in 6 months. That's no good for anybody. You don't win from that. I don't win from that. The clients don't win from that. And so going back to being curious and being a matchmaker, a good recruiter is going to do that. And if they're in it for the next 20 years, it might be this job. It might be the next one. It might be the one after that.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great response there. And we got Chantilly agrees with that response as well. Well, we're over the hour. I want to be respectful of your time. Do you have any sort of any sells for yourself you want to make, or any things you want to say, or how can people reach you? Do you want people to reach you?
Yeah. So kind of deflect a little bit on if somebody's saying, hey, I need a job, can you help? My answer is I'll probably send you some links unless I happen to have a job. So I'm happy to look at a resume. I'm so old school, Brooks. I have buckets, folders of, tech stack, and I got a C++ folder, and I have a Rust folder and a Python folder. And so, I'm going to put you in a box or in 2 boxes and keep your resume on file. So happy to do that. So as far as kind of how to keep in touch with me in general, I do believe, and I love the market I serve here. I love helping people. And I think it's why conversations like this are fun for me, because I do feel like I hopefully am able to instill a little bit of value into the market that may not pay me back. And that's great. But where I am trying to intentionally spend my personal time, my hobby time, willwegert.com. I have 50 blogs that are almost written. And so I'm still in the process of going to hire somebody to help me clean it up. They're really ugly things where somebody asked me a question and I wrote a 2,000 word response to them. And I'm like, I should save this. Somebody, if one person asked, there's 20 other people that want to know that. So at some point, maybe I'm putting this out into the ether to hold myself accountable. There's going to be a ton of free, valuable, really good information on there. And so that's going to be my anchor point for how can I help people in mass instead of, one at a time. So that's probably the best place to follow. There's very little there now. It's a picture of my face and says Will Flawless Recruiter and a teaser. But there's some meat behind that is sitting in a Trello board that I think it's probably 50 fleshed out. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one that has 50 half posts written. If you have anybody that's good at turning that into a fully fleshed out grammar and spelling thing, I'll take that. But I'll also answer this question there. Ramp up to productivity in a few months, ramped up to a top engineer in 4 to 5 years. I think companies understand that. I think also there's a cost to hiring anyone, right? Sometimes the cost is if you want somebody who's going to start today and hit the ground running today, or in a few months, the cost is hiring me, right? If you want the cost to be, hey, we're going to grab this person by the hand and help them grow, that cost is another engineer's time, right? And so I think companies in general do fundamentally understand that, which is why, as a recruiter, I almost never am going to see a job that is, let's hold your hand and help you grow. I don't really see junior roles. I don't really see mid roles. I see we have pain today, and we're willing to pay you to help us find it. So I do believe that companies understand that, which makes recruiters, external recruiters, that is. Internal, different story. Internal will help you with that all day. So hopefully that helps. But a little bit tangential to our wrap up, but I thought it was a good question. Wanted to address it.
Yeah, it's a good question, but it's also one of those things where it's tough, right? Because we need to fix the entire ecosystem of engineering and software development in order to fix that, right? It's not something that just recruiters can fix. It's going to be everybody.
Yeah, and I wish, there's ever a roundtable about how to solve that, right? I deeply believe that, and I think most of us know this, and very few people, I've heard very few suggestions that I feel like have legs on how do we fix that, because the bottom level, there's a shortage of engineering talent, but most of that, boot camps, and there's been a lot of ways to create that flood, that influx of entry level, mid level, early stage engineers. But the miss is the training. It's from day 1 to year 3 or year 4 or year 5 that somebody's willing to hold your hand and help you and ask those tough questions and learn the things that that just took a while to learn. And that's hard, and that's the chasm that's missing. It's not a I would venture to say recruiters make that worse by nature of our job. It's like our job is to go patch holes instead of allowing, I follow college football a lot, right? And instead of developing talent, out of high school, like we're just going to go pull somebody in the transfer portal. Like that's my job. I'm the transfer portal guy, right? And that kind of sucks because it means the 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year person is just getting passed over. And I deeply, as a human side and as a person who loves this field and a person who wants to see it grow, that's the biggest chasm that I think that the market needs more work on, is how do we help. And I think AI is making that worse, right? Because we can almost cheat our way into, I think, apps can be built, and I don't understand it enough to have a deep theory on it, but I think some of the basic tasks are going to be automated, which means we're, again, skipping over this training of like some of the fundamentals, right? For me, it's how do you write a message that is compelling, right? So that's in the recruiting world, our 101, right? Like, how do we not be an asshole, right? And then, how do you care about people? And those are like, when I've hired junior recruiters, it's that fundamental, like they need to learn what is Java versus JavaScript, right? And we laugh at recruiters because they don't know the difference, but everybody starts somewhere. And so like, I think that maybe is a good point to end on, of like being willing as a senior, if you're a senior in this world or in recruiting or in development, like the only way I believe that's going to change is that you have to be willing to volunteer or do some of the less fun things, and that's helping train and mentor other people. I don't know. I'm going down a big tangent there, but it's just something I believe so deeply, and I see a big problem in it, and I know you all do too.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great thing. That's a great place to leave everything off on. Will, thank you so much for coming on. This has been great. I think we answered a lot of great questions. Good conversation. Hopefully it was good for you too.
Yeah, it was just fun. Thanks for, you're so good at being curious. You just get me going here. I just talk and talk. So hopefully it was helpful. I had a ton of fun, Brooks. Always great to hang with you, and thanks for the time.
All right. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day. Hopefully we can do this again sometime.
You too. All right. Cheers.
Bye. All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with that. How do you enjoy it? Hopefully it was good. This is the first time I've done one of those things where we did like a call. We chatted about this. It was great. Excellent. Hopefully like the quality was, I sort of like figured the entire, like Google Meet thing last minute. So maybe next time I'll try to figure out some better way to like display it on screen than like me over small on the side. But, I think I can try to like organize more of these, maybe chat with some, I have I know one data science person, but is super busy. I don't know if I'll be able to get him to come on stream. I might be able to convince him to come back later. That would make a great VOD on YouTube. It would get a lot of traffic. Yeah, I'm going to cut this up, and I don't know if I'm going to do, I don't know what the format is. Hopefully I can also create some shorts from that too and throw that up on there. I'm going to put some like on LinkedIn, on X, on YouTube, obviously. I think that'll be good. But yeah, if any of you have any other people that you want me to chat with, let me know. I'll reach out to them. And we can just, especially topics, like, because I know some different people. I have no idea what name any of you would be interested in. But anyways, I am hungry. I want to go grab some lunch. It's an hour after I would normally grab some lunch. Thank you again, everybody, for hanging out with me today. Tomorrow and Thursday, we're going to continue with the Java integration of AI into FusionAuth because it's funny. It's very insightful episodes. Thanks for running it. Well, thank you, Vaughn teacher. I'm glad that it was helpful. So let's see. Tomorrow and Thursday, I will be back at 9:30 a.m. to continue working on the FusionAuth AI integration project. And we'll continue working on that. It's a Java code and Olama sort of together. It's fun. So with that, have a great rest of your day, everybody, and I will see you all next time. Bye.